Peaky Blinders, for those of you who are not already addicted to this show, it's likely you will be one day. But before I relate today's theme back to this Netflix show that was set 100 years ago, I want to start by thanking you all for coming today and officially welcome you to TEDxCollingwood 2019. With our theme this year being built around what's up and what's positive and looking forward to the great things the future has to offer, I wanted to take a minute to look back at the progress we've made over the last 100 years. In 1920, when the show Peaky Blinders is set, to get from London, England to Toronto would take 5 days by boat. Today, we can do that trip in 7 hours while watching Peaky Blinders on Netflix. And we can book that trip on our smartphones and our handheld device in just minutes. And we don't have to go back that far when we think about how much progress we've made. In 1981, half the world's population had access to safe drinking water. Today, 91% do. In fact, 285,000 people per day for the last 25 years have gained access to safe drinking water. It's pretty remarkable, right? And now I want to bring it back a little bit further to a gentleman named John D. Rockefeller. Now, I want to give credit to Darren Hardy and his morning motivational videos that I watch every day to give me this idea. If you haven't already signed up, sign up now. So John D. Rockefeller is, even today, known as one of the world's wealthiest men ever. He was revered for his lavish lifestyle and the amazing things he had. And he lived at a time when he didn't have any of the conveniences we probably take for granted every day, and very simple things. Things like radio, television, rock and roll, antibiotics, internet, smartphones, cars, airplanes, Amazon one-day shipping, and so many more. So by almost every measurable statistic, even if you're living at the very bottom of middle class today, you're actually living a better life than one of the biggest ballers in history, John D. Rockefeller. All this to say, this is the golden age. We're living it right now. There's never been a better time to be alive. When you think about it, it's never been safer, it's never been healthier, more prosperous, more equal, more accepting in any time in history than today. So while we're inundated with what's down, let's take today to focus our attention on what's up and to the amazing speakers and ideas that are going to grace this stage today. And now, are you guys ready to meet your host for today? Sunny is a TEDxCollingwood alumni. She spoke on the stage last year. If you haven't seen her talk online, I suggest it. Great talk on grit and perseverance and her family's travel around the world. And Sunny's brought today one of her childhood friends, Ivan. Now, Sunny and Ivan grew up in King City. They were good friends, they played sports together, and they were very competitive. And speaking of competition, Ivan's also graced the TEDx stage, not TEDxCollingwood, but TEDx Ryerson U about 7 years ago. Now, not to overshadow his childhood friend, but Ivan's talk has over 17 million views online today. So, I would also recommend looking that one up. So now, without further ado, let's give a big, loud, warm welcome to your guests, your hosts for today, Sunny McGaw and Dr. Ivan Joseph.
Hello, and welcome to TEDxCollingwood 2019. We are delighted to be here with you today. I'd like to introduce you to my esteemed co-host, Dr. Ivan Joseph.
Thank you. You can see how we're different already, because I was getting ready to get my jam on, and she was right to business. So go ahead, sorry.
How we roll. Ivan's TED Talk, as mentioned by Chris, has 17 million views, but also recently was voted by Forbes magazine as one of the top 10 TEDx talks for recent grads about the meaning of life. Pretty good, Dr. Joseph.
For the record, I have a really big family, and I pay them all to watch it a lot of times, all right? Not to be outdone, Sunny did take her family of 5 backpacking adventure around the world in 19 different countries. So not too shabby at all. that's one worth looking as well. So we'll take it. We go back 32 years as mentioned, but let's just be clear. For 30 of those 32 years, she never mentioned a word to me. The only time she reached out to me was when she was doing a TED Talk and said, yo, I see yours is pretty good. Give me some pointers. And I'm like, what the heck, friend? So we did come back. I know you're like, how could she look like she's 30? Like, it doesn't look that old, but oil of Olay skin and a little stuff, it's doing magic. All right, anyway, what's up?
Thanks, Ivan. Have any of you, awesome. Have any of you wondered about the genesis of TED Talks? Well, they started actually in 1984, which was a full 5 years before the invention of the World Wide Web. Can you believe that, millennials? They started with a vision to be the world's greatest dinner party. Doesn't that sound beautiful? But I'll tell you, the first year was an utter bomb, and it took them 6 years before they did it again. They started with the 18-minute threshold because that was seen as the limit of the human attention span. Ivan, do you think that's true for men as well?
Why you gotta go there, man? Why you gotta go there? I got ADHD. You could tell. I'm good for at least 9 minutes.
Three. We're going to go with 3.
Keep it PG, please, parents.
But the rest is viral video history. And to date, there have been over 1 billion views of TEDx talks around the world.
Oh.
And the one thing that threads them all together is they're all ideas worth sharing.
Nice. Keep in mind, I got my own tidbit. I found my own fact because I don't, $7,500 was the first price of those tickets back in the day. Now, $7,500 in 1984 dollars is like $20,000 today. So I don't know what you guys paid for a ticket, but you got a really good deal. All right? Let me talk to you a little bit about the structure, may I?
Sounds great.
All right, so today we've got really great speakers. We've got CEOs, we've got pilots, we've got entrepreneurs, we've got a young, is he mini pop kid? Mm-hmm. Like he is a singing storm. We got a legitimate rock star. I'm talking somebody who's been like on TV, something that says platinum records. He even looks like a rock star because he's got the hairdo, he got the cheetah lemon jacket, like I think he got tattoos, so it's like, he's the real deal.
It's on.
All right, it's on. They're going to go, we've got 12 performers, and so you're going to have 3 sections today. Each section will be broken up with a 10-minute break. We'll have a little performer, and then the 3 speakers will go, break, then that will start all over again, all right? This is what we got to make sure when that's happening. Make sure you give them the love when it's their turn to speak, all right? You know what it's like to be on stage if you've ever been up here. They're going to be a little nervous, all right? They're going to be a little shy. If we make a bad joke, your job is to do what? Crack it up, man. Crack it up. Not like a little, not to be offensive, white person polite chuckle. I'm talking like black people belly laugh. All right? I'm looking at you white folks in the front row especially. All right? I'm clearly off script, but I'm sorry. Go ahead. All right?
All right. Excellent. A few housekeeping rules, if you will. We'd ask you to turn your cell phones off, not just to vibrate mode, off, off, off. But during the breaks, and certainly at the after party, turn those phones back on and post with reckless abandon on all social media. Please use the hashtag TEDxCollingwood.
Tag me, Dr. Ivan Joseph, all right? I got to get some Twitter followers.
At the breaks, there will be coffee, there will be refreshments, there will be snacks provided. And we also ask, speaking of distractions, to not get up during the presentations, if you don't mind. Wait till the breaks. And there are washrooms in the lobby. There's a ladies, there's a men, and there's an accessibility washroom. The accessibility washroom is obviously for people who require an accessibility washroom, but also for the ladies. Because, let's face it, those washrooms are always lined up. Sound good?
Women's washrooms were always built by men.
They're built by men. Not planned well. Okay, I think we're almost ready to get started.
I got to request. Let's, all right? Is that okay? Or are you going to go with theme first?
I was going to go with the theme
All right,
first.
sorry.
Okay,
My fault.
all right.
Back up.
So today's theme is what's up. And as Chris said, in a world that often feels inundated by what's down, from climate crisis to social inequity to racism and riots, we can sometimes feel like the world's a pretty darn dark place. But today, at TEDxCollingwood 2019, we are going to be connected with some incredible individuals who are using that challenge as an opportunity to level up, using their creativity, their curiosity, and their drive to make the world a better place.
Oh, love it. Thank you. Don't be a passive audience. You decided to come here for a reason, not just to be entertained, but to be educated. And so I have a simple request. Take your nugget, your morsel, whatever that small piece of that talk that inspired you, that spoke to your voice, that spoke to your soul, and take it back to your community. Because after all, what is TED really about? It's about ideas worth spreading. All right? Enjoy yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. I look forward to seeing you at the end of today's sessions.
Okay, excellent. We are going to introduce our first performer for the afternoon. His name is Carter Lane. Now, if you were here last year, you will remember Carter. Carter is a 14-year-old musician, local, and a heartthrob. And in the last year, Carter has accomplished some amazing things. He joined Mini Pop Kids. He traveled across Canada, and he was given a challenge to learn to dance, and he did. Carter will be performing 2 of his own songs today. One is called Good Enough, and one is called Six Strings, his own songs that he wrote. So let's put our hands together. A warm welcome for Carter Lane.
Thank you. The part about me learning how to dance is a lie. I am horrible. Okay, well, thank you for introducing me. Well, what is music? Well, it's a way to express yourself in your emotions. It can make you laugh and cry. It can help you connect with other people and maybe shake off some of your anger. It motivates us and it inspires us. And when I write my music, I get my inspiration from my everyday life. I've written songs of my family, my friends, and even my dog because of their overwhelming impact that they've had on me, whether through love, compassion, or gratitude. And with that said, my first song is called Good Enough, and I wrote this one this past summer about my friends. Laying on the ground and thinking about the hours of our days, taking it all in, wondering why you went and walked away. Not really sure when it happened, but I want it back. Not really sure why it happened, but I want you back. 'Cause we both know that I'm not good enough for you, that's true. Maybe you can't be enough for both of us, you see. And we can go along with this forever, you and me. So maybe by the time that I wake up, it's all a dream. Yeah, oh yeah. Talking to myself, wondering how the moment slipped away. Sitting on a shelf, photos of our love on a better day. Not really sure when it happened, but I want it back. Not really sure why it happened, but I want you back. 'Cause we both know that I'm not good enough for you, that's true. But maybe you can be enough for both of us, you see. We can go along with this forever, you and me. So maybe by the time that I wake up, it's all a dream. Yeah, oh yeah. Laying on the ground, thinking about the hours of our days, taking it all in, wondering why you went and walked away. Not really sure when it happened, but I want it back. Not really sure why it happened, but I want you back. Thank you. This next song is called Six Strings, and I wrote this one about my dog. His name is Chewy. Saturday morning, out of bed, time to earn my keep, gotta make my bread. I play my heart on these six strings to see what income this voice brings. The passers-by, they like my face, they like my style, they like my grace. They flip me a coin, $1 or two. What they don't know is that they do it for you. You are my thoughts, my dream, my drive. You are the reason for being alive. So I get out of bed to play these strings, to pay the bills and buy you things. On these six strings, I see the girl, the look on her face, and I can tell she wants to take your place. She sees me smile and she thinks of her, but the image of you causes me to stir. The passers-by, they like my face, they like my style, they like my grace. They flip me a coin, $1 or two. What they don't know is that I do it for you. You are my thoughts, my dream, and my drive. You are the reason for being alive. So I get out of bed to play these strings, to pay the bills and buy you things. On these six strings, I live for the days that are sunny and warm. They are the ones that bridge those storms. I make my coin in an hour or so, then I head on home to let you know. You are my thoughts, my dream, and my drive. You are the reason for being alive. So I get out of bed to play these strings, to pay the bills and buy you things. You are my thoughts, my dream, and my drive. You are the reason for being alive. So I get out of bed to play these strings, to pay the bills and buy you things. On these six strings, on these six strings, on these six strings.
Outstanding, outstanding. Carter, at 14, has more talent than this 50-year-old man. I always feel a little bad about myself when I come off the stage with that. Excellent. And if that's the song about his dog, imagine what his first lady friend's gonna think when he writes it. I was like, he loves that dog, man. Holy. Our next speaker, my PhD's in sports psychology, and so I study grit and resilience and self-confidence. And so this next speaker really speaks to me. His LinkedIn vitae might say he's a corporate trainer, but he describes himself as an adventurous. Today he's going to talk about resilience. His talk is entitled The 7 Muscles of Resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. David Donaldson.
My good friend Vince is a director of maintenance at a summer camp. One year they were building a beach, so he hired a backhoe. While they were digging, the backhoe started slipping and sliding into the lake. The more the operator tried to drive out, the more the heavy machine sunk into the boggy shore. Without missing a beat, he rotated the cab, he reached out with the digger arm, and he pulled himself out of the lake. Describing this to me, and I'll never forget his words, Vince said to me, he says, "Dave, you should have seen this guy. He was like a fighter pilot. Nothing fazed him." Like a fighter pilot. We have this romantic image of a pilot facing an unraveling situation, staying calm, staying effective, and saving the day. We could say that that backhoe operator was up to the challenge. I want you to think about those words for a moment. Up to the challenge. Sometimes we are, and sometimes we're not. There are times we are going to fail, and I contend that failure is actually good for us. You see, it's our complexity that enables us to be effective in certain situations and struggle in others. But it's our adaptability that enables us to learn through adversity. You will be a different person at the end of this talk than you were at the beginning. The cool part is this is happening every moment of your lives. You are adaptive and complex. We're going to take a simple look at this concept today in our short time. Settled science says we have 3 brains. We're going to talk about just 2 of them today, the neocortex, or the new brain, and the amygdala, often referred to as the lizard brain. Now, the neocortex is all about your executive function, perceiving, reasoning, processing, language. This is where we do our decision-making. This is where the rational adult lives. Our amygdala, on the other hand, has our fight, flight, food, and friend response. It's all about basic survival. Now, these 2 brains work in concert with each other. The neocortex is all about learning and growing and evolving, while the amygdala is all about basic survival, breathing, blinking, and yes, running away from danger. This served us very, very well when we were trying to avoid becoming a saber-toothed tiger's lunch. But the amygdala is a simple brain, and we're dealing with a complex world. Now, when we are posed with a threat, our amygdala, very quick reacting, steps in to save the day, to protect us. It's called amygdala hijack. Some of you may have heard about this. But that's the simple description. It's a little bit more complex than that. You see, there's a trade-off. When we experience amygdala hijack, we start to lose our executive function. Now, it's not a simple binary response. As we develop, the amygdala hijack continues to develop, we start to lose options and lose options. We effectively lose IQ points until eventually we're left with just 2 options, fight or flight. When we have the time, when we have the calmness, we do the math. We make a logical decision, but that takes time and energy. I'm going to ask you a question. Just shout out the answer. What's 5 plus 7? Anyone? 12. Thank you so much. What's 64 times 143? Okay, now notice your reaction, right? Everyone's like, 12, no problem, bring it on. 64 times 140? Yeah, good one. Fun. Okay, the reason that we react that way is because it takes more energy. This is a question that requires our neocortex, which spends more energy than our amygdala. And part of our survival response, part of our survival instinct is to conserve our energy, to preserve it. So we don't want to use that extra higher energy vehicle whenever we can avoid it. The good news is, through some practice, we can reduce the energy draw, what it takes to do that. Now, this is where resilience comes in. Resilience is a complex and adaptive response to today's complex world. And it requires our neocortex. So we're going to take a look at a model today.
7.
Resilience muscles model, as defined by Dr. Linda Hoops. And we're going to take a quick look at this today. And through deliberate practice, we can reduce the energy required to access these muscles. Now, we all have these muscles, and we all use them. Based on our life history, though, we've all developed them in different ways. Much the way a weightlifter is going to be more of a specialist, and a triathlete is going to be more effective across a wide range of endeavors, we too are going to be more of a specialist or more of a triathlete when it comes to dealing with today's challenges. Let's take a look at these muscles. I was introduced to them in 2014 when I completed my first profile. This is what we refer to as a mixed profile. With highs at 95 and lows of 2, I was overusing some muscles and underusing others. With highs in creativity and experimenting, I was the one volunteering for that project before it was even fully explained. And oh, by the way, I got 5 great ideas of how we can do this. You see, creativity is all about the new and the different and being okay with ambiguity. Experimenting, that's all about taking risk. It's about giving it a try. I was effectively leaping and then looking. In high school, I was voted most likely to come to an early demise. You see, I had my driver's license on my 16th birthday, my motorcycle shortly thereafter, and my pilot's license on my 17th birthday. Okay, back to the profile. Now, we're going to take a look at each of these muscles and how they contribute to one's overall resilience. And much like biceps and triceps that are muscles that oppose each other, creativity and structure are opposing muscles. Remember, creativity is all about the new and the different and being okay with ambiguity. But structure is about working through those details, about removing ambiguity. As you can imagine, in today's VUCA world, these two are very important. Priorities balances with experimenting. Remember, experimenting is taking a risk, giving it a try. Priorities is all about focusing your energy, making sure that you're focusing on your priorities and not someone else's. This is that nice balance of having an adventurer, but yet still having the safety of home base, staying grounded. The one that really surprised me, though, was positivity and confidence. This was not me. I'm a confident person. I'm a positive person. I was confident that things would work out, that I could even turn a down into an up. I was positive. I was confident. I got this was my motto. In 2014, I was pretty down. I was not happy with this, but I knew I could fix it. The one we haven't discussed yet is connection. Now, this is the muscle we use to reach out for help, to call for assistance. A lot of times we think about reaching out for help as a sign of weakness, but it's actually a strength. We need our tribe. We need our team. In balance, you are a triathlete, ready to take on a wide range of challenges. When some muscles are overused relative to others, you're a weightlifter. You're great in some situations and struggle in others. The good news is, through deliberate practice, we can develop these muscles. You see, this is the adaptive part about the complex and adaptive systems that we are. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself, creating new neural pathways. Now, I want you to think about what it was like to learn an instrument or drive a car, ride a bike. It was hard work. But you practiced, practiced, and practiced. And as you practiced and practiced and practiced, it became easier. What was happening in your brain is it was creating a new neural pathway. And then as you practice, it strengthened that neural pathway. So as you practice and practice and practice, those neural pathways become stronger and stronger, and it takes less energy to access them. And by doing this, what we can do is we can actually prevent amygdala hijack, because now it's going to take less energy to access those resilience muscles, those muscles that we need to deal with today's complex problems. Do we have any violinists here today? Any violinists? You've grown an extra ridge on the side of your brain over here on the right. Einstein had it. Kind of cool, eh? All right. So armed with this new knowledge, I set about working on developing my resilience. How could I strengthen my balance? I enlisted the support of others. I put small reminders in place, and I worked on these muscles. For example, for priorities, I had to remind myself that every yes was a no to something else. Whenever I said yes to something, I had to think about what I was saying no to. And to say no to a request, I needed to think about what I was saying yes to. This was the toughest one for me. Special thanks to my wife, Dolores, for helping me with that one. For structure, I entered reminders into my calendar. Do small, simple little things to develop the muscles so they'd be available when needed. And boy, were they needed. Let me share with you what was happening in my life in 2017. My brother decided to take Mom for one last trip to Florida before she entered palliative care. This was the start of an 18-month-long bitter family feud that finished when Mom passed. During all of that, I was facing multiple upheavals at work, including over 100% turnover and being acquired. And if that was not enough, my lovely wife and partner of 30 years was facing some potentially life-altering health issues. There's a lot going on. This is prime time for some unproductive behavior, for amygdala hijack. Then in September, it all came to a head. On the weekends, I volunteer as a flight instructor at a local glider club. I was taking a student up for an instructional flight, and I was not 100% there. The stage was set. We took off, we climbed to release altitude, and we started the lesson for that day. As you can imagine, with all my distraction, I was having a hard time concentrating. This was complicated by the fact that I was having difficulty communicating with my student. I was asking for a right turn, getting a left turn, this sort of thing. I'd allowed us to venture too far out, and we were not going to make it home. This is when I realized I needed to draw on my resilience to get us out of this mess. For some context, let me explain to you some details. Since gliders don't have engines, our range is defined by our altitude. The higher we are, the further we can go. As a glider pilot, I need to carefully monitor my location and altitude to make sure that I'm going to make it home. On a good day, we can use rising air currents to climb higher and hence extend our range. There was no such lift on this day. So I was now faced with what we refer to as an outlanding, somewhere in that area. Now, the real danger here is that I had lost situational awareness. As I realized this, I had to get my thoughts and gather them quickly. And I only had a few minutes, because in less than 5 minutes, we were going to be on the ground. The good news is my resilience paid off. All that hard work that I've been doing over the last couple of years. I was able to prevent amygdala hijack, stay effective, keep control, land the plane in a small private airstrip, an airstrip that was too narrow for my glider's long wings. But with all my faculties restored, I carefully landed on the center line, moved off to the side, and deliberately put the right wing on the ground, thus preventing a dangerous ground loop. With us all safely on the ground, I realized I needed to focus my energies and deal with the matters at hand. I stopped flying for the rest of that season. I was able to negotiate the family politics, to support my sister and be there for my mom's final steps. I was able to lead my team as we formed and reformed and merged with our new parent company. And most importantly, I was able to be there for my lovely wife. Challenge is hard. It takes energy that our brains do not want to spend. But we need challenge in order to grow and evolve. Not all of us, though, experience positive development when it comes to challenge. This is where mindset comes in. According to Dr. DeWick, we have two mindsets, fixed and growth. A fixed mindset says, I cannot play the piano. A growth mindset says, I cannot play the piano yet. We are dynamic and we have a choice. We can use deliberate practice to establish and maintain that growth mindset. My first resilience profile was a wake-up call. I had some good muscles, and when the situation was exactly right, I was that backhoe operator, but I had no range. Armed with this new knowledge, I set about training to develop my resilience muscles. I made small hassles as exercises, I refocused my outlook on my growth, and I developed my muscles through deliberate practice. We are dynamic, and we are complex, and we have a choice. We can choose to accept our current situation, our current skills, or we can choose to leverage our experiences to develop our resilience. I'm a work in progress, but I invite you to join me on this wondrous journey as we leverage this down world to tune up our personal resilience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Wow, what a talk. Resilience and practice. There are so many takeaways from those ideas. As someone who's recently taken up the violin, I'm really looking forward to growing that extra ridge in my brain. Next, we're going to hear from Kristen Wisniak. Kristen is also known as Miss Wiz. Kristen is an elementary school teacher here in Collingwood, and I think she's kind of famous, actually. When she started teaching, she realized early on that there was a really big problem. Over 50% of the young women, the girls in her classes, showed signs of psychological distress. And that stat is actually good for all of Ontario. So Kristen said, no, this is not good enough. I'm going to do something about it. And Kristen formed a girls' club that provides mentorship and support, and perhaps most important of all, provides the girls with the ability to shine each other's crown. Kristen's Girls Club currently has a staggering 98% attendance rate for grades 7 and 8 girls. Let's put our hands together for Miss Wiz.
Let me start off by telling a little bit about myself. I'm a single mom of 2 amazing kids. My 7-year-old son has a passion for sport that I don't think most professional athletes even have. In fact, when he first started to learn how to read, some of his sight words were ball, strike, out, Tulowitzki, Encarnacion, Batista, you get the idea. And then there's my mini-me, my 5-year-old daughter. And let me tell you, she is a strong-willed, stubborn, independent little girl. I have no idea where she gets that from. She wakes up every day thinking that it's going to be an adventure. We'll go to the grocery store, and she'll put on her best Elsa dress, put at least 5 to 10 bows in her hair, and top it off with a tiara and walk around like it's nobody's business. I bet you somebody out there are thinking, oh yeah, that reminds me of someone that I know. But isn't it amazing how carefree and confident they are at this age? That's what brings me here today. I too was that carefree, confident girl. I had so many friends growing up. I had amazing parents and a brother who was like my best friends. I got good grades. I played sports, and all through elementary and high school. I was on student council. I dated the most popular boy in high school. On the outside, you would think that I had everything going on, that it was perfect. But in actuality, on the inside, I was screaming. I felt so much pain and so many thoughts going through my head, I didn't know how to keep up with it. I remember some days my heart would just race so fast that I was thinking of having a heart attack. I was scared to talk to anybody. I had no idea what was going on. This started at the beginning around the age of 15. When I was 18, I finally drove myself to the doctors where I was diagnosed with clinical depression. Again, because of the stigma of having a mental illness, I didn't tell anyone. And because I didn't tell anyone, and because I didn't get the treatment that I needed, I was more vulnerable to having postpartum depression, which I did with my second child. And believe me, it was a nightmare. At that same time, I was going through a separation with my husband of 7 years as well. I can remember 1 week at the end of August, I moved out of my married home with my 10-month-old and my 3-year-old. I was coming off maternity leave after not working for over a year, still dealing with postpartum depression as well. I was starting at a new school in a new position, which I knew nothing about and was highly demanding. They say when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. No. Life was not giving me lemons. It was literally hurling pineapples at me. So when life gives you pineapples, you make pina coladas. Am I right? So if we look at this timeline of events, we were born these healthy, confident little children. Then, of course, as we grow older, we are faced with the inevitable stressors of life. We can't get away from that. But it's about how we deal and cope with the fight or flight response, which will impact our development as we get older. Now, I've been teaching for about 14 years now. I have seen firsthand how girls are faced with the negative effects of social media, pressures of school, making friends, and just trying to fit in. I do not want to be a teenager now. We didn't have cell phones back in the day. We used to write notes to each other, fold them up in a cool little way, and say, hey, I got to talk to you at recess. I couldn't imagine dealing with some of the text and all this Snapchat and everything going around these days. Teachers now are at the front line of the growing expectation that school teachers should not only act as educators by delivering the curriculum, but also be involved as Tier 1 mental health professionals. This means now that we have a responsibility to be able to identify mental distress in children and guide them to appropriate supports. See, when I first started teaching, I would go to workshops on things like math, reading, and now I'm attending workshops on substance abuse, addiction, and suicide prevention. Talk about a shift in job description. In one study done by the Center of Addictions and Mental Health in 2017, it states that for the first time, 50% of female students in grades 7 to 12 in Ontario show signs of moderate to serious psychological distress. Now that was in 2017. I can only imagine the increase of numbers over the past couple years. It was also reported there were elevated stress levels, poor mental health, seeking counseling, thoughts of suicide, and being prescribed medication. Among adults with mental illness, 50% knew something was not right before the age of 14, similar to my situation. Studies have also indicated that the onset of major mental health disorders, such as depression, eating disorders, and substance abuse, begin around the age of 14. Now think about this number 14 for a moment. Hold that in your heads because we're going to come back to that because it seems to be a magic number. I attended Brock University, first started taking neuroscience, then shifted my focus to community health promotion. So I've always been interested in the study of the brain. So this is the part where I'm going to attempt to sound super smart, so please bear with me. The teenage brain, let's take a look at it for a moment. That's, yep, I think that's pretty accurate, wouldn't you say? But seriously, the teenage brain is awesome. It's actually at its most healthiest point right now that it'll ever be in. However, there's a 200% increase in morbidity at this time as well, because the brain is not fully developed. The brain reaches full maturations when the teens are about to come to their mid-20s. So right now, they're only thinking probably about half of their brain. If we look at the brain, it develops from the back to the front. The last part to develop is called the prefrontal cortex. This is responsible for controlling emotions, problem solving, and decision making. So if any of you have emotional teenagers at home, it's because they don't have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. Am I right? Right now, as well, there's something happening in the brain where all these neural connections are being made at this age. It's taking every single experience around them and constantly firing off. However, at the same time, something called synaptic pruning is happening. So essentially what this does is it cuts off the weaker parts of the brain that are not being used, similar to Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest. Only the strong survive. So what does this mean for us as educators and as adults? Well, what if we can give the kids the proper, supportive adults that they need at this time? Then we can build up these neural connections in the brain, give them the coping strategies that they need, strengthen them before they get pruned away. Building connections equals building resilience. Now, going back to this number of 14 for a moment. So one day I'm cutting my grass because that's when I do my best thinking, and then it hit me. Why are we not intervening in the earlier grades if studies are saying that the major onset of developing mental disorders is around the age of 14? This is where I decided to take action. I did not want to see a girl feel afraid to speak up, alone, and scared. I was that girl. I know what it feels like. So I went to my principal and vice principal with a proposal to begin a girls group at my school. They fully supported me, and the group began to run with about 65 to 70% attendance. We sang songs, we created vision boards, we baked. This was the beginning of an initiative that I had no idea would flourish into something so large. The second year, we focused on team building and inclusion. We tie-dyed t-shirts together. We created a video about finding the inner beauty in everyone. We even biked over to CrossFit Industry and did an incredible workout with Coach Steph. And let me tell you, it was the coolest thing to see some of the shyest, quietest girls dominate a series of challenging exercises and to have their peers and friends cheer them on the whole time. Last year was a bit of a turning point for me. I had about 35 girls join the group, which is about 85 to 90% attendance of grades 7 to 8 girls. We focused on physical fitness and sport to improve mental health. We played parking lot road hockey. We also played volleyball, dodgeball, you name it. We also did Zumba classes, and it really didn't matter the physical abilities of any of the girls. They all attended and participated, and their smiles and giggles weren't contagious. We also did a flash mob at our Christmas assembly, and yes, I did the floss in front of the entire school, and I think it was indeed the highlight of the assembly. I wanted them to know it's okay to be yourself. It's okay to be goofy and silly and not worry about what other people think. We looked at also what we could do, not only in the school, but outside the school in the community. The girls came up with the idea to have a warm winter clothing drive, and we donated bags and bags to Salvation Army. We also hosted a bake sale where we ended up raising $750 for the local women's shelter. When we presented a check to the representative from my friend's house in Collingwood, the tears in the girls' eyes made my heart melt. I wanted them to know that the smallest act of kindness, such as a bake sale, can make such an impact in our community. Our motto is to shine the other girl's crown. Women need other women. When we have that support, we are unstoppable. Now, I had this girl last year who came to the school later, and she wasn't part of my group, and I said, hey, why don't you come out and join us? And she looks at me and she says, Miss Wiz? She's like, but it's a girls group, and I'm not a girly girl. That's when I laughed, and I said, girl, my mother could not get me in dress when I was little if my life depended on it. I mean, I like to get my nails done, but on the weekends, you can find me playing in the mud in my Jeep. She ended up attending to the group the next day and was out there playing road hockey with everyone. She is now a leader for the grade 7 girls this year, and she tells them that this group makes her feel safe and comfortable and to be who she is. Talk about success. This year, we started to look at what we could do and start early. The girls begged me to start the girls group the second week of school. I was greeted at the library door with smiles and hugs and laughter. Finally, when they all got settled, I paused and I looked at the quiet room and the sea of faces and was overwhelmed. I had 100% attendance from the grade 7 girls. They have seen what we've been doing year after year after year and could not wait to come and join this group. I asked some of the returning grade 8 girls, can you please tell them what this group is about? Because I was too busy holding back my tears. I was not prepared emotionally for the things that came out of their mouths. Words such as, it's a safe place for everyone. We're free to be who we are. There is no judgment. We learn to love ourselves. I continued and drew 2 letters up on the board, a U and a no. So talk amongst yourselves. You guys decide, what can you interpret from this? There was some discussion about one being closed and one being open. There was also discussion that they're both are vowels, very true. But then one girl hit it right on the head. She said, the O is closed with no room to let anybody in, but the U has space for others to join. That's exactly it. We're going to be looking at making a U, not an O this year. We're always told to make that circle of friends. But when we have that circle, we start building circles here, here, here. That's when cliques begin to form, and there's no room for others to join. But if we focus on making a U and building up our community, we can continue to add to these 2 parallel lines of the U, adding more and more supports to our system, not excluding anyone. And if you look at the shape of the U, it's similar to a basket. So if anybody falls, we are there to catch them. I continue by posting up a quote about finding your tribe. I explained to them, there's no sign-up sheet to be here. You don't have to miss your recesses. I don't take attendance. But because they are here and because they have joined this group, they are now part of this tribe. We will do our best to look out for one another and create a sense of community inside our school. Now, I'm not saying there's not going to be any girl drama this year, because let's face it, there's going to be. But if they can feel comfortable coming to a supportive adult, we can be the ones that facilitate and help them work through whatever issues they're having and give them the strategies that they need. Therefore, we can build up those neural connections and coping strategies. At the end of the year, I received a bunch of gifts and cards which were completely unexpected from some of the girls. I always look for signs that I'm on the right path in life and with what I'm doing. And their words were a proven sign that we are in the right direction for what the whole plan is for this tribe. Words such as, you've inspired us girls to be the best people we can be. Thank you for always having your door open. You've inspired me to be who I am and love myself. You help us to be confident and give us the courage to show emotion when the whole school is stressing us out. When I told these girls that I was going to apply to be a speaker for TEDxCollingwood, they were so excited and cheered, and they couldn't wait to go online to help nominate me. Even some of their parents nominated me. I get gifts and cards from parents of these girls thanking me for being there as a supportive adult in the school for their daughter. They say that they're thankful that I am there for them, that I have my door open and give them the support, but in actuality, I need them more than they need me. They have pushed me to fulfill my dreams and to work harder, to be a better teacher, a better mother, a better mentor. If we start looking at building connections with supportive adults, and that will help build the connections inside the brain, and therefore building that resilience that we need. We all need human connection. We all need each other and someone to talk to. Let's focus on shining that other person's crown and making an O, not a U. I have so many hopes and dreams for my wild-hearted little daughter. Let's raise our youth up to be confident, strong leaders. I like to close with a nightly mantra that I say to my little girl each and every night. I am strong. I am smart. I am silly. I am brave. I am beautiful. I am unique. I am creative. I am safe. I am loved. Thank you.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Double high five, high 10. She's backstage feeling like, thank you, Miss Liz, for a noblest profession. For those of us who have daughters and granddaughters or nieces or sisters, best thing ever. Growing their resilience helps them not just in that school system, but as they go on to be citizens right around the board table, the hospitals, wherever they may lead. Excellent. Our next one, social entrepreneur. This young woman, in her application, applying to TEDx was the first time she ever did an interview. She reminds me of everything that is good in human beings. She is gracious, she is generous, she is kind. She has led a movement to feed people for no other reason, that with no admissions, no prices, no criteria. I love this talk. Without any further ado, welcome Miss Sohaila Smith.
A few years ago, I saw a post on social media, and it said, $200 grocery card to give to a family in need, making less than $200,000 a year. Send us your story telling us why you feel you need it, and we'll pick someone. Please raise your hand if you feel this is a wonderful gesture of giving. My name's Sohaila Smith, and I'd like to talk to you today about need and the art of giving, no strings attached. Need is an interesting word. Often when we think about need, we think of it from a more privileged perspective, as in the less fortunate. But that doesn't encompass the diversity of human need. Need can mean many things to many people. It can mean food, courage, confidence, money, shelter, love, companionship, a sense of belonging, respect, a voice, and a reason. I could go on, but regardless of the kind of need, every need is valid, and we all need something. Let's go back in time for a second. 6 months before I saw this post, I felt need. And you're probably thinking the same thing I was. How could I possibly feel need? I have clothes on my back, a roof over my head, food on my table, I have a job, the bills are getting paid as best my husband and I were able to, but I still felt need. In this world where we're constantly bombarded by what we need and what we think we need, the needs are very quickly blurred with the wants, and I was having trouble seeing in perspective. I felt I had not enough. Not enough time, not enough love, not enough money, not enough to help myself and my family, let alone to help someone else. Speaking of family, as I sat there suffocating in the feeling of not enough, I thought of something my mother told me. Back in the 80s when the recession hit, my dad lost his business, and our family lost our home. And my mother had to go back to work after raising 4 kids to help with the finances. And according to her, she would take the last $15 after the bills were paid to buy rice and beans to feed my family of 6 for a week. Now, my mom is an amazing storyteller, so it's possible the details are a little fudged, but the effectiveness was there. And when my brain said, "You have nothing," I said, "No, I have so much more than I realize." When you feel you're least able to, and that you have not enough, is exactly when you should give, so that you can see how much you really have. All you have to do is open your eyes. So I thought, okay, if I have so much, what do I have? I have skills. I've got lots of skills, I like to think. I've got time. I wasn't working as much as I wanted to. I have energy. I'm a workaholic, and I can admit that. And I have love. But what am I genuinely good at that's actually useful to other people? Music, art, cooking. I thought of something. When I was a kid, my mom used to bake banana loaves, and they always brought me comfort. So I decided to bake banana bread and give it away on a Pay It Forward group that I created for the community. 4 loaves very quickly turned into 12 to 16 loaves weekly, and everyone that received was as happy to receive them as I was to bake them. Through this really simple gesture, I realized there is always more than enough to give. More so, I realized I had so much more to offer. I was empowered by giving without expectation. So let's go back to the social media post. There's no car this time. When I saw this post, and I saw the list of praising comments, I really couldn't help myself. Keep in mind, I made less than this income bracket that was specified, and I was in a bad mindset. But I looked at it and I said, no, this isn't giving. When you limit entitlement to a gift by an income bracket, and you ask people to publicly disclose their personal struggles, their financial details, their hardships on social media, and then you ask them to justify the reason for their need, for this necessity, food, that is the farthest thing from giving. It is not giving. In fact, it's demeaning and it's dehumanizing. So all I could think of was, if my mom can take $15 and feed our family of 6 for a week, I should be able to feed at least 40 people with $100. So I decided to take my grocery money that fed my family for 3 to 5 days, my family of 3, and stretch it to feed an additional 35 people. And so came the birth of Soup House. Soup House is a place that has served 102 suppers to date. It's a place where tables are set, candles are lit, volunteers are our waiters, guests are all welcomed alike, and we serve nutritious suppers every single Tuesday. It's a place where everyone is welcome to come to get what they need, as long as we can provide it, without compromising their privacy. So this is just the idea. There had to be more to it. I specifically chose the word complimentary because the word free tends to mean something discarded, unwanted, or of lesser value. But complimentary comes along with a welcome message that says, please join us. And I thought, okay, let's serve a side order of respect with this and offer a sit-down dinner instead of takeout. And help people longer term by providing a giving table where they can take things like freshly baked loaves, produce grown in the garden, and local non-perishables from local supporting bodies such as schools or the food bank. Now, with any idea, there has to be some structure. 1, give what you love. Give what brings you joy. If I have to ask for it, it's not giving. And if it's a burden to you, it's not really giving. The way I look at it is this. If you do what you love, it's not work. And if your work gives you what you love, it's not a burden. It's much more sustainable to do something long-term if you enjoy it. 2, no expectations and no obligations. This means that every single volunteer is under no obligation and we have no expectation of them to give beyond what they're comfortable with. This means that sometimes we'll have one volunteer, that's my son, on the day that we had one volunteer. Just for context, he's 7 and he served 20 people. And other days, we have many volunteers. Number 3, guests are guests, not clients. This means we're not going to collect data. We're not going to find out where they live or how much money they make or why they're coming. If you were coming to my house for dinner, I would never ask you how much money you make or to fill out your name and address on a piece of paper for my records. I would never question why you needed to eat my food at all. I would simply welcome you, make sure that you felt welcomed. I would offer you supper, probably forcefully offer you seconds, and I would be more than anything happy that you joined me. This is the element of Soup House, the element of equality and respect that Soup House instills. When you remove the structure of financial division or class structure, whatever you want to call it, and everyone is welcome at the table, regardless of who they are, what their life is like, what their religion is, what their origin is, just human beings at the table together, something amazing happens. You reestablish a sense of community. 4, no strings attached policy. We have a no strings attached policy for both giving and receiving. This means that when someone offers us a gift, but they tack on a condition, we're not necessarily obligated to fulfill that request, nor are we necessarily willing to accept that gift. But it also means that when we give without expectation of anything in return. You see, when you give with strings, it's not really giving. Giving with an expectation, it's a trade, a transaction, or a deal. If I scratch your back, you'll scratch mine. That's not giving. It's barter. Now, sometimes people have difficulty accepting a gift, and this is something we had to take into account. So people have self-imposed guilt. Who here feels uncomfortable receiving a gift? There's probably a lot of you, yeah, okay. So basically, when someone feels uncomfortable or feels that self-imposed guilt or the need that would make them happy to give back, they're welcome to, so long as they do it discreetly in a way that does not make anyone else who may not be in a similar position feel obligated to do the same. So with these founding rules in place, I found a location graciously willing to offer their space to us. And I had to put up a social media post that said, "We're starting to serve weekly suppers every Tuesday. If you'd like to volunteer or join us for dinner, please do." And they came. The very first night, supper was ready, volunteers were dressed in aprons, tables were set, candles were lit, music was playing, the guests arrived, and we served them. And as the weeks went on, we had more guests, and more volunteers, and more support from the local community, local businesses, local schools, and the food bank. The community initiative was in full swing, people helping people. Sounds almost perfect. But let's talk money. How do you feed 35 people with $100? It seemed kind of impossible at first. So, that would mean that on weeks when I had more, let's say $150, and I'm not very good at math, it would be $2 to $3 per person for a 2 to 3 course meal. And on weeks when I made less money, so $100 roughly, it would be $1.50 to $2 per person. It seemed impossible, but it just took a little bit of creativity. And I'm an artist, which explains both my slightly lower income bracket, but also my source of creativity that makes this possible. I had to learn through trial and error how to stretch the money and the food to feed the people, a nutritious, wholesome meal that was also satisfying. Now, there's a much steeper learning curve when you do anything like this. The first lesson that I learned was not everyone's going to like what you give them. Just because you give it doesn't mean they're going to like it. Your ego has to go out the window. All I'm going to say is keto avocado sugar-free chocolate mousse wasn't a hit. Number 2, when you have something pure and good, like genuinely pure and good, there will always be someone who tries to manipulate it for their advantage, whether it be financial gain or administrative gain. And unfortunately, we have had a few instances where something like this has occurred, where someone has given us something and then later on tacked on a condition that they felt we were therefore obligated to fulfill. But because of our privacy policy and our no strings attached policy, this does cause conflict. When you give with an expectation of something in return, that is business. And even a charity is a business, which takes me to my next point. People always say, you need to register Soup House as a charity. But that would turn our guests into clients, and that won't do. Funny enough, though, we realized we need something from our guests. We need reservations. After running out of food twice over the past 2 years, we don't really need to know why they're there, who they are, where they live, or what their situation is. We literally just need to know that they're coming so we know how many bellies we're filling. This helps us prevent food waste, financial waste, and helps us prepare for the labor of love ahead, otherwise known as work. But despite needing to know this number, we're always prepared for at least 5 walk-ins. New guests who don't know to reserve, guests who aren't able to reserve for whatever reason, emergency situations, and the homeless. And yes, all of the above have graced our tables, and each and every one of them was served alike. With any idea, there's always a challenger. In this case, there's a parable that says, you feed a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he eats for a lifetime. The point of it being that by providing for people, we're fostering dependence, and we're not really helping them. So I thought about this. I'm a pretty level-headed person, and I gave it some serious thought. And I thought, yes, we definitely feed them, and yes, we definitely provide for them. But a lot of our guests will stay after supper to help clear up. Or they'll come back and volunteer for a day to give back themselves. Some of them bring gifts of produce so that we can cook the meals, and others are so thoughtful that they bring treats to share on the giving table with all of the other guests. We also educate people on proper food portions, healthy food choices, and we make cultural meals accessible to them that they may not have ever tried before. We do a lot more than just feed people. We don't foster dependence. We foster good humans by setting a good example. I realized something. I need help. It's not that kind of help, though. I'm one person, and I can only do so much. I have the idea, I have the modest finances to make it happen, the drive, but I can't serve all the guests. I need the help of the volunteers. And I can't manage all of the tasks on a regular basis every single week on my own. So Josh helps me. And I can't run a team of volunteers while simultaneously plating 35 suppers. But Brenda helps. This list could go on literally all night long, but to stay on point, I'll say that I could not do what I do without the help of every single person involved in every aspect of Soup House, and for each and every one of them, I am extremely grateful. One person can do a lot of good, but many people working together can do amazing things exponentially. But what's the catch? Why do you do it? What's in it for you? What do you get out of it? Joy, happiness, the good feeling that comes from helping others. See, fulfillment is often defined by how much money we have or the value of the things that we've acquired in our life. But my bucket is filled when I do what I love, and I fill your bucket while doing it. There is no need for strings in a relationship that is naturally and mutually symbiotic. It's not about money, and it's not about things. It's values-based. Instead of looking at each other and measuring each other up based on how much more or less you have, try looking at each other like human beings with just as much to give as you and just as much need as you as well. If you take away something from today, take away that expectation is the enemy of a gift. It destroys the gift. True fulfillment comes from giving what you love, free from burden, and without expectation. Now that's some food for thought. Thank you.
Do you hear that, Sohaila? You're getting a standing O out here. Welcome back from your first break, everybody. Hope you got some nice sustenance and had a great opportunity to chat and to connect with everybody. Ivan and I were just saying, we feel like we've introduced ourselves to you, but now we feel like we want to get to know you all a little bit. So we have a couple of questions. I think the house lights are as up as they can go. So, first question, by a show of hands, can you tell us if this is your first TEDx Collingwood event?
Holy
Wow,
jumpin' jack flash. All right.
That's great, good stuff. I think I can tell where the second question is going to net out. How many of you in the audience have been to all 3 TEDx Collingwood events?
Oh, our loyal following, our loyal lovers.
I
Love
guess
it.
we're doing something right here, Ivan.
Nicely done. I got one that's not even on the script.
Okay.
I want you to stand, though. If you are related to somebody who is speaking today, stand. Let's just see how many mamas and papas and aunties and uncles. All right. Hey, these are some proud parents. It's nice. You should be very proud of those.
Absolutely, must be proud. I think our last question, and certainly not our least, it's going to take a little courage to answer this question, but is there anybody out there who's here today because they might, maybe, someday have an idea worth sharing, worth spreading, who would like to be on this stage someday?
Ooh,
Anyone? All right.
Tentative? Nice.
Bravo.
I like the strong, right? Loud and proud.
Do it. All right, we're getting ready to go with our next performer, Frankie Cote. Go ahead,
All right,
Ivan.
let me tell you about Frankie. Frankie is a musician. He's a talented performer. He's going to talk about leaving nothing behind. He took a 7-year journey across many countries and left everything behind. He's got a song entitled One Thing. But right after that song, he's going to also talk about his 7-year journey. A 7-year journey of redemption where he battled demons and was in very dark places and came out on the right side of it. A very courageous and moving talk. I welcome Frankie Cote to the stage.
If I did one thing for love, the opening line of a song I wrote whilst taking a 17-country world trip back in 2018. Now, I don't remember the precise moment when this song came to me, but it was at some point between the searing heat of Malta and the timeless snow-capped peaks of New Zealand. I'm taking a photo of them there. Now, with all songs and like all songs, they come to me in an instant. A blink of an eye. Some might say a flash of inspiration. If I did one thing for love, I would strip away all that I thought I was. Now, the meaning of these songs, that's a whole different matter. The song may come to me in the blink of an eye, but the meaning may take a little longer. It can take me days, weeks, months, sometimes years to fully understand what a song really means. My muse speaks in a beautiful tongue. Her language is so beautiful that I sometimes don't understand it straight away. I'm a human. In this case, the meaning came really quickly. I realized that I'd thought I was many things over the years. I thought I was a pop star back in my late teens and early 20s when I played shows to 1,400 people. I thought I was destined to work with the differently abled when I worked as a carer for autistic young adults. I thought I was a wolf of Wall Street when I lived in a sub-penthouse apartment in a swanky building in downtown Toronto working as a director of partnerships at a tech company. I thought I was an author when I published my first book, and I thought I was a good one when it hit #1 on 6 Amazon charts, little charts. And for someone who doesn't consider themselves to be much of an actor, I sure have played quite a few roles. Now, I didn't just think about the roles that I'd played, I also thought about all the things I'd thought about myself. I thought I was broken beyond repair, as I suffered for most of my adult life thus far, with chronic physical and mental health issues that eventually led to 2 suicide attempts. I used to think that I couldn't live without alcohol for about the same amount of time, until I realized that it is possible, surprisingly. I thought I would never love anyone authentically based on the cultural upbringing I had, until I realized that I could love whoever I wanted. I thought I was a good person, but I sure have done some pretty bad things over the years. So can I really call myself a good person? If I did one thing for love, I would strip away all that I thought I was. Now, when it came down to it, this process of realizing that everything I thought I was eventually changed, or was rendered obsolete by time, or was ultimately subjective. I mean, you might not agree. I called myself a pop star, but you might not think so. And I didn't much like the idea that everything I thought I was ultimately meaningless. Realizing that was not a very nice moment at all. I felt tiny in this big, huge universe. But it got me thinking. I thought, if everything I ever think I will ever be, and everything I thought I was, and everything I think I am now means nothing, then surely there's something else out there that I can attach myself to. Surely there's another part of me that I can refer to when understanding who I am. If I did one thing for love, I would travel around the world in search of something I can give to you. I would hammer my every stone to find a jewel. And so I went on my trip. And as I wandered around this beautiful lake, I got to know my emotions. I didn't think about them too much. I just listened. And suddenly, problems I'd had for years made a little more sense, with the requisite emotions that took me past my logic. I continued to the camel fairs of Rajasthan in India, they're great. And I got to know my knowing. I asked myself, what do I really know about myself? And it turns out, not very much. But what I do know is beautiful. And suddenly I knew so much more than I did before. And later in Sydney, as I was sipping this tiny, bittersweet espresso, I found myself communicating with my body. I asked it to tell me something I didn't know, and I didn't think. And suddenly I realized it had a beautiful language of its own that I hadn't been listening to. I used to be 320 pounds. I didn't get there by listening. Now, just to run over this with a little more clarity, beyond our thinking place is our feeling place. The place that paints the color of emotion on our lives and gives us an understanding beyond our logical mind as to what serves us and what doesn't. Our knowing place, the place that simply knows things. That we love our mum. That's not my mum. That we love our dog. That's not my dog. Or that we love our stepmother's dog. She has 5. I love them. And the body, our longest serving companion who'll be here from before we're born till after we die. But how often do we find ourselves saying something along the lines of, I just can't feel this right now. There's the kids, and there's the school, and there's work. I just can't feel this. Or, I know this isn't exactly what I want to do, but 6 more months, maybe a year. Or, I should offer my body more nutrition, but cake. That's my one. Now, the solution to these dilemmas can be represented as a compass. To the north is our ever-present thinking place. Our capacity to use logic to better understand the world around us, to solve problems. The great machination that is our mind helps our heart beat and helps us pull air into our lungs. It can also cause us a lot of problems if it's left unchecked. Hence why we need the east, our feeling place, the emotion that adds something beautiful to our logic, that takes us away from being a pure android and makes us human. Our knowing. And our knowing place, that perhaps timeless place that tells us what we love and who we love. And our body to the west, our friend for life, who, if we learn how to treat kindly, we hope will return us abundant health. And herein lies my idea worth spreading. We're often taught to use our thinking place. And most of us hardly ever leave our thinking and our feeling place. I am a product of that. And I didn't get to 2 suicide attempts by knowing. It's so important to live our lives using every data point that is accessible to us. From our thinking, feeling, knowing, and body. Using all of these, we can make truly smart decisions. Now, the understanding of this concept came to me as this song came to me. And I may have said many words, but I probably can't share the message quite like when I sing it. But I'd like to sing this song for you. Hello. If I did one thing for love, I would strip away all that I thought I was, and I would come to you as the littlest me, and I bring you no excuse. 'Cause you only saw the paper mache faces that I wore, and I did believe that those faces, they were part of me, but they weren't. Now you can see me. If I did one thing for us, I would travel around the world in search of something I can give to you. I would hammer my every stone to find a jewel. 'Cause you only saw the man I hired to save me when I was so young and confused. He won me many wars, but he hurt you, so I let him go. And now you can see me. If I did one thing for love, I would strip away all that I thought I was. Thank you.
Thank you, Frankie. Beautiful, wonderful. Does anyone else find his accent rather swoon-worthy? I also wanted to point out that something interesting is happening today. We are live streaming our show. So if you can go on Facebook or on the TEDx Collingwood site, you'll see that it's being live streamed right now. Ivan, I think you're a little early. Yeah, you're one act early. Yeah, thank you though. We're gonna say he's eager. He's keen. His timing's terrible, but okay, all right. Next, we're going to hear from Nero. So Maya Jula. Nero loves oceans. Nero knows oceans. Oceans are Nero's family business since she was a little girl. And Nero's business combines two loves of hers, oceans and big data, with the goal of preserving the oceans for future generations. It may be said that instead of blood running through her veins, it's actually ocean water. Put your hands together for Nero.
Good afternoon. I'm Neeru Somayajla. I'm the CEO of Sensor Technology, a company headquartered right here in Collingwood, Ontario. And I'm passionate about the ocean, but more importantly, about the technology that's used to know our oceans better. So this is where we live, and as you can see, all of that blue stuff is something called H2O. In fact, 70% of the Earth's surface is covered in water. Yet somehow, we don't know anything about it. So why is it that we know more about Mars, an extraterrestrial planet, than we do about our own oceans? And there's a couple of reasons. Mars. So pressure, the atmospheric pressure that you experience in Mars is about 1 atmosphere, or 14 psi. I know that I put anywhere from 70 to 120 psi into the tires of my bike. When you're working underwater, you can experience pressure as high as 10,000 psi. It's huge. So if you want to imagine, put your hand up. and you put 14 jumbo jets, head to tail, on top of your hand. That's what 10,000 psi can feel like. You're also working with corrosive materials. It's electrically conductive underwater, and you can experience wild temperature swings from the surface to underwater. And the technology and the equipment that has to work underwater has to survive all of that. And so 70% of the Earth is covered in water, yet we've only explored less than 15%. We know so little about what's happening in those murky waters. In Canada, we have the longest coastline in the world, 7,500 kilometers of coastline, yet we know very, very little about it. So let me back up a little bit. What does a company based here in Collingwood care about what's happening in the ocean, which is thousands of kilometers away? Well, 36 years ago, we started as part of a pottery company called Blue Mountain Pottery, making ducks and cups in that iconic teal blue. Well, they wanted to diversify, and diversify they did. We make high-tech ceramics. So what do high-tech ceramics have in the ocean? Well, high-tech ceramics are actually called piezoelectric ceramics, and they were discovered 140 years ago, and they have this really unique property where if you push on them, there's an electric voltage that comes out. Or conversely, if you put an electric voltage in, they will actually vibrate, and they're really great for communicating underwater. That said, you will find piezoelectric crystals in your everyday life, in your barbecue lighter, in those kids' shoes that light up when they're jumping on them. Those always use piezoelectric ceramics. You will also maybe come across them in the world of imaging. So if you've ever had a medical ultrasound done, there's a piezo ceramic in there as well. And so heaps of applications use piezo ceramics, but we're lucky enough to be involved in the underwater market. And applications like this, where a commercial fisherman will take sensors that use piezos and actually know where their nets are wide enough. They'll be able to tell where there's pods of fish, and they can even tell if their nets are full. These sensors give them information in order to be able to make decisions. Information is key. A company based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, called Vemco, they use our piezoelectric ceramics to make acoustic fish tags. They'll take a ceramic and they'll actually implant it into a juvenile salmon while it's alive, and they'll use that tag to be able to track its migration patterns, whether it's in a lake or a river system or even in the ocean. And again, they're trying to find information. What's happening to these species? What's the water temperature like? How's the salinity of the water? Where are they going? Why are they going there? This is HAL. Now, HAL was tagged in 2018 as part of a OSearch research vessel. HAL and a number of his buddies were all tagged, and you can actually follow them on Twitter. You can see where they are, know what they're doing. I'm pretty sure the East Coast surfers are pretty happy to have that Twitter feed. A big part of why they were tagged is that we want to know more about what they're doing. What is their environment? Where are they traveling? The information that we get from these type of technical devices and piezoceramics can help us make informed decisions on how to better protect ourselves and the marine life. Now, my company, we're not involved in the big systems that go into deep exploration, but we do manufacture the acoustic sensors that go on all of those types of vehicles. And thanks to having clients around the world that are trying to go deeper and longer and have better image resolution, I've got a front row seat into what's happening in the world of ocean tech. So what is happening in the world of ocean tech? So we know that there's less than 15% of explored ocean. A lot more to know. And so the big push in the world right now of ocean tech is to gather big data. We want to know more. And as we all know, a picture it's worth 1,000 words. And so the technology that's emerging today is helping us gather information by way of seeing pictures. Great images help us know more, help us learn more. And so, a couple of really interesting things that is the future of ocean tech. This is an autonomous underwater vehicle. It's created by a company here in Canada called Kraken Robotics, and this is their Thunderfish. What's amazing about this vehicle is that it's completely unmanned. It's intended to be used without humans. It's given a mission, it's deployed off the back of a ship, and thanks to its sensors, the sensors will tell it where to go, how to get there, how to avoid marine life, how to avoid other vehicles along the way, and it also takes lots of images along the way. And what's most incredible is that it can work as deep as 6,000 meters below sea level. That's 6 kilometers. It's incredible. And the types of images that Kraken's able to produce with their Thunderfish look something like this. You can see lots of detail here, but what's more interesting, I think, is that there's information. And this information can inform decisions. This is a ship, but this could have been a plane. Is this the plane that went missing? Is this maybe the plane that we should be mobilizing to bring up to understand what happened, to know more? Information is king. And all of these vehicles help us to understand a little bit more about what's happening under the ocean. Now, what I find even more interesting is that we're going the way of electric vehicles underwater. This is an underwater docking station. So instead of vehicles having to come back up to the surface, get loaded back onto a ship, data to be removed, batteries to be recharged, instead you've got an underwater garage. Nicest looking garage I've ever seen. Vehicle can float on in, recharge, dump data that's tethered to the surface, can get its new mission, and off it goes again, without ever having to come to the surface and without ever having to interact with a human. There's also these things called unmanned surface vehicles, and these are intended to work along the surface of the water. This is made by a company called Ixblue in France, and it actually comes with customizable payloads that drag behind it, depending on the mission that it's going on. In this case, it can operate for 7 days on one charge, and it's out to survey the offshore wind farms, wanting to know whether the structural integrity of those structures are good. All of this can happen, yet again, without humans. Now, this is one that I'm probably the most excited about. This is the world's first autonomous electric container vessel, and it was developed by a group called the Yara Birkeland in conjunction with a Norwegian company called Kongsberg. And it's the first one of its kind, completely unmanned, that will replace 40,000 truck trips a year in an otherwise densely urban area. It has sensors built all around it that will let it know when there's other vehicles in the area. It'll let it know if there are marine life in the area. And in very congested shipping corridors where there's lots of marine life, this is a growing concern. And so this will actually do its first voyage in 2020, and it will revolutionarily change the way shipping is done these days. Understanding the sea is important. The more information that we're able to gather, the better decisions that we'll be able to make. We can not only protect ourselves, but we can protect the marine life. As well, being able to find new underwater resources will help us find new food sources, possible new ecosystems that will find medicines, as well as energy sources. Knowing more about what's happening underwater will protect us from tsunamis. They will also help us be able to predict tectonic shifts in the earth to know more about earthquakes. I think what's most important, though, in the gathering of big data in the ocean is that we'll be able to better manage our ocean resource. And that's going to help it be sustainable for generations to come. I'm honored to be part of the ocean tech world, and I'm pretty excited about what the future has to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Nehru. Thank you. Oh, guys, this is the right time to bring that stuff out, by the way. I don't know what you're talking about. We like to just keep it dancing, all right? All right, we're ready to go. And the best thing about Nehru is, even though she lives in Collingwood, she also lives in my neck of the woods, which is Halifax, so we're gonna share and we're gonna connect over coffee. The next person, he is, I'm gonna call him, it's probably gonna offend some of you folks, but he is a science nerd. What I love best about him is he makes science so easily and accessible for those of us who are just dumb as posts, which is myself. His talk is gonna just enlighten how the cosmos works. He describes himself as the founder of Cosmology for All. He is incredible in that end. He's spoken to science for 3 decades, over 45 countries and 5 different continents. He is exceptional with what he does. Without any further ado, let me introduce to you Mr. Tom Vassos.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Are you ready to all join me on a trip trillions and trillions of kilometers across to the far side of the universe? Yes. All right. Good enthusiasm. Before we do that, though, I have a confession to make. At various points in my life, I have been addicted to watching thousands of hours of astronomy videos on YouTube, playing solitaire, or watching Judge Judy reruns on TV, okay? Now, I hear some of you laughing at me, but come on, you gotta fess up to which TV shows you've been binge watching lately, or which reality TV shows maybe you've been obsessing with, or maybe you're just spending hours and hours of time on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, getting that endorphin rush every time someone posts to your Facebook page, or maybe getting an endorphin rush every time you receive a text message. And it's interesting because I worry about our new digital age of kids that are growing up now. These kids are bathed in bits, the first truly digital generation. And I worry about the thousands of hours they're spending online, on social media, etc. And I worry about their abilities to build relationships with friends and families and things like that, and to be really smart in what they're doing and focus on things that matter in their lives. And it really got me thinking about addictions. And a lot of us are aware of substance use disorders, like alcohol, drugs, and cigarettes, but many of us are not familiar with process addictions. Hong Kong University recently did some research that said about 400 million people worldwide are addicted to the internet. Several million are addicted to online gaming, and potentially up to 500 million people are addicted to television. In fact, a recent Harris research poll asked kids what they wanted to be when they grow up. And guess what? American and British kids were 3 times more likely to want to be a YouTuber when they grow up rather than an astronaut, okay? And yet Chinese kids overwhelmingly said they wanted to be an astronaut when they grew up. So I worry that Western societies are losing our focus on STEM, getting educated in STEM and getting careers in STEM. And that's a big concern to me. So one of the things I like to talk about in terms of astronomy and cosmology is how can we get people excited about this stuff and focus on some stuff that really potentially matters in their lives. So let me start by taking this journey into the Eagle Nebula, a short journey, only 60 quadrillion kilometers, where we're going to see the most famous Hubble picture ever taken. Can anyone tell me the name of this object here? Anybody know? Yell it out. Okay, it's called the Pillars of Creation, just an amazing image that Hubble was able to take. But with each one of these Hubble images, we also make amazing discoveries. In this particular thing here, scientists discovered these nodules here called evaporating gas globules, or eggs for short, which are basically just all kinds of dust and gas that are crashing together because gravity is pulling it together. And it reaches 1 million degrees, and then 10 million degrees, and then 18 million degrees, and at that point, magic happens because nuclear fusion occurs and a star is born. So not only are we getting the beauty of the universe, but we're making these amazing discoveries, and right now we are in this golden age of astronomy. So I suggest we have to do 4 things to really get people excited about this stuff and focusing on it. One is to make it inspiring, and I wanted to share with you my story about getting inspired about this stuff. I was surfing around YouTube one day, and I saw this video, a computer animation about something called galactic cannibalism, where two galaxies come crashing together. And it's interesting because this computer animation, we believe, is very accurate because it's interspersed with actual images from the Hubble telescope, like this picture here that you're about to see, where it caught two galaxies colliding together. And then once again, the computer animation shows what likely happens when 200 billion stars come crashing together. And once again, the actual Hubble image showing the evidence that we're seeing this out in the universe. So that's pretty amazing. The second thing that actually inspired me was just the huge cosmic distances involved in the universe. Let me introduce you to our closest star, Proxima Centauri. You might have heard that it's only 4 light years away, which doesn't sound that far, right? But guess what? If we were to take our fastest spaceship, which is about 700,000 kilometers an hour, 260 times faster than a speeding bullet, it would still take us 15,000 years to get there. And forget about trying to fly there in a Boeing 747. That would take you over 10 million years. And that's our closest star, which, by the way, happens to have a planet orbiting around it as well. So who knows, maybe we'll find life there one day if we have a few generations of people that can visit. So that was inspiring. The next thing that was inspiring was this picture that Hubble telescope took of a spot in the sky that didn't appear to have any stars at all. And Hubble stared at it for 11 days straight. And guess what it discovered in this tiny spot in the sky? 10,000 stars. No, wait, that's not right. These aren't stars. What are these smudges? These are galaxies, each with about 100 billion stars in them. And by the way, this isn't a huge spot in the sky. This is a tiny little spot in the sky. In fact, it's only 1/13 millionth of the sky. It would be like me taking out a straw and simply looking up to the sky with this straw-sized image. And we see in this one image 1,000 trillion stars. And in this one straw-sized image, trillions and trillions and trillions of planets and moons, each with the possibility of hosting alien life. Okay? So just amazing things like that that really got me inspired about that. Number 2, we have to make this stuff mind-blowing. So I always love to talk about the bizarre and extreme things in the universe, but to get into that, what's the one thing that we as Canadians love to complain about? Yeah, the weather, the heat, the cold, whatever. But guess what? That's nothing compared to what we get out in the universe. All you have to do is visit Venus, which is nearby, on its surface, 500 degrees Celsius, 900 degrees Fahrenheit, and it rains sulfuric acid, okay? Not a very nice place to be. Or how about this planet where it actually rains rocks? Okay, or how about visiting this giant blue planet, which is 1,000 degrees Celsius, 20 times hotter than any spot on planet Earth, 7,000 kilometer an hour winds, and it rains molten glass sideways. Okay, and how about this discovery? NASA has discovered the first ever circumbinary planet, a planet that actually has 2 suns. That's right, if you were to live on this planet, you would actually have 2 shadows, and every day you would get to see 2 sunrises and 2 sunsets. Wouldn't that be cool? And it's just like the planet Tatooine in the movie Star Wars, if you've ever seen that. They had 2 suns as well. But as they say, science is even more amazing than science fiction. So NASA has even found the first planet that orbits in a solar system with 3 suns. So any place you look up on this planet, you're going to see a sun. In fact, you'll go 140 Earth years of daylight with ever seeing nighttime. So that's kind of amazing. And what about this interstellar gas cloud? It's actually made out of ethyl alcohol, the same ingredient as beer. Okay? In fact, it contains 300,000 pints of beer. No, wait, it actually contains 300,000 pints of beer for every person on planet Earth to drink every day for the next billion years. Okay? Imagine that party, right? It's no wonder Neil deGrasse Tyson loves to say the universe is under no obligation to make sense to you, right? Or the most extreme thing that people love to talk about, these things called black holes, gravity so powerful not even light can escape, but swirling around it is this accretion disk of gas gas and dust traveling at near light speed over 1 billion degrees that kind of lights up the sky in this area. The interesting thing about this particular black hole from a galaxy called M87 is that it's 6.5 billion times bigger than our sun. But secondly, when we took this next picture, which was a recent discovery, the first ever picture of a black hole, Einstein predicted these things 100 years ago, but just recently we got the first ever visual photographic evidence that black holes actually exist. But the cool thing about this picture is that if you were to see this picture that we just took now, it looks like a great picture, but we're not seeing this black hole as it is right now. We're seeing it as it looked 55 million years ago, because that's how long it took the light from that black hole to reach us, okay? So that's kind of mind-boggling. Let's talk a little bit more about that by making the universe personal to each one of us. So I want to talk about how we can do that. If you were to go out tonight and you might catch a glimpse of a really large star called Betelgeuse, it's near the end of its life, it's about to explode into a supernova explosion, you would actually look at it and say, wow, that Betelgeuse looks beautiful tonight, but guess what? You're not looking at Betelgeuse as it looks tonight. You're looking at Betelgeuse as it looked in the year 1376, because it took the light 642 years to get to us, okay? So Betelgeuse might have already exploded into a supernova explosion, but we may not know about it for hundreds of years. So an interesting aspect. You, in effect, are a time travel. You can look back in time simply by looking up to the sky. How about the periodic table of elements? We're actually now discovering what every single element in the periodic table of elements, how it was produced, what temperatures and pressures were needed to produce it. And so let me ask you, what's the most common molecule in the human body? Anyone know? Most common thing in the body? Water, made up of H2O, hydrogen and oxygen. Well, guess what? All of the hydrogen in your body was produced 13.8 billion years ago at the time of the Big Bang. Even the carbon and nitrogen in your body was produced 5 to 10 billion years ago when stars exploded. Even the iron in your blood and the calcium in your bones was produced 5 to 10 billion years ago when these stars exploded. They spewed out their enriched guts into the universe, and somehow those elements landed here on Earth and produced all of us. What else? A few more fun facts about the universe. The fastest thing in the universe you may know is light, which travels 300,000 kilometers every second. But who can tell me what the second fastest thing in the universe is? No, it's not sound. Okay, I'll give you a hint. That's right. That's right, it's Superman. Now, it got me thinking, wouldn't you love to be able to fly like Superman? Wouldn't you love to be able to fly as fast as Superman? Which got me thinking, how fast is Superman anyway? Superman's faster than a? That's right, he's faster than a speeding bullet. Which got me thinking, I better Google this. How fast is a speeding bullet? As it turns out, a speeding bullet's about 2,700 kilometers an hour, about 25 times faster than you flying down the highway. But guess what? You are in motion as you're sitting here. We're flying around the solar system, around the sun. In fact, the entire Milky Way galaxy with us in it is flying across the universe at 2 million kilometers an hour. So when you go to bed tonight, by the time you wake up in the morning, you will have traveled 15 million kilometers across the universe. Sweet dreams, my friend. But you're probably saying, come on, Tom, that's cheating. I'm just lying in bed. Superman gets to fly around buildings and save Lois Lane and all that kind of stuff. I'm with you, so now we got to fly like Superman, and I'm going to tell you how we can do that. A couple of ways. The first thing you're going to do is, on your next vacation, all you have to do is travel 1.4 billion kilometers, visit Saturn's moon Titan, where the gravity is so weak and the atmosphere is so thick that you could literally strap on wings and fly. Okay? And once again, that's a little far to go on vacation, so I got a better solution. All you have to do is travel 400 kilometers, roughly the distance from Toronto to Ottawa, except you have to do it straight up to visit the International Space Station, where you will be able to fly in microgravity like Superman or like this NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. So I want all of our kids and our grandkids to know they can fly like Superman or like Superwoman when they grow up, okay? So in summary, you can fly at over 2 million kilometers an hour. You have the power to look back in time. You are billions of years old, and you are made of stardust. How about a hand for everybody in the room? Okay, number 4, we have to make this stuff engaging, especially for our kids. And one of the ways we can do that is to become a citizen scientist. Every person on planet Earth can become a citizen scientist. I'm going to tell you how to do that. So you can go to websites like Boink, Zooniverse, and spacehack.org, where you can become a citizen scientist as well as your kids and grandkids, and you can do it passively or actively and proactively. Passively, you can simply let some of these programs take over your computer while you're out running errands and stuff. So if you sign up for the SETI at Home program, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, while you're out running errands, your computer is going to be looking for radio signals from aliens from the far side of the universe. Wouldn't it be great if you could help make that discovery? Or you could do it proactively by actually accessing real NASA data. So NASA is now crowdsourcing an analysis of billions of data points and images that the scientists just don't have time to look through. So for example, you can analyze data of exoplanets in distant solar systems to find exoplanets in the habitable zone that might host alien life. So you could be one of the first to discover that first planet that actually hosts alien life. Or you can analyze the NASA data of asteroids or near-Earth objects that are flying by us that might be big enough to destroy all life on planet Earth. Well, guess what? NASA now has the technology. If we spot one of these early enough, they actually have the technology to deflect it so it won't hit Earth. So you could be the citizen scientist that saves planet Earth. Okay, that would be great. So in summary, we've got to make it inspiring, mind-blowing. We've got to make it personal, and we really got to engage people in all of this. So my idea worth spreading is really just the idea that each of us take a critical look at every minute of every day, every hour of every day, what we're spending that time on, and maybe, just maybe, we can transform our living rooms and our family rooms from a place where we're just totally wasting time on stuff to a place where we're learning about the universe around us and a place where we're actually getting inspired by the universe around us. So we may not have all the answers about the universe, but the quest to unravel its mysteries can be our greatest inspiration. With one teacher, one open mind, and one book, you can change your world and the world of your loved ones around you. So thank you very much for coming today. Thank you. Thanks.
Wow. Does anyone feel like they just watched the greatest episode of The Big Bang Theory? Thank you so much, Tom Bassos. That was truly inspirational. Next, we're going to hear from Mark Jesty. I think all of us have superpowers. And personally, I feel that my superpower is being prepared, over-prepared sometimes. And so this next speaker, I really took a shine to what he had to say, because he speaks about being prepared for the new world coming up. He said something very profound to me the other day. He said there's a tsunami of change coming to the way we work, and yet very few organizations are prepared for it. So through his work in leadership development, Mark encourages us to pick up our pitchforks and look out for ourselves in the new gig economy. Put your hands together for Mark Jesty.
The year is 1492, and you've been commissioned to sail a ship off into the fog. No one has ever come back from the fog, so you have no idea how long you'll be gone or where you'll end up. You don't have much room. So here's the question: what do you pack on your ship? Some obvious answers come to the fore: food and wine, blankets, weapons. To be sure, our list would be long, and each of our lists would be different. We would instantly realize that we're faced with a challenge of having to make tough choices, what stays and what goes. We'd also realize we're faced with a future that has multiple possible future scenarios, but only limited capacity. We would need to have a look at each one of these items and look at them in terms of how robust are they. For example, food and wine are good regardless of where you end up or how long you're gone. Blankets can keep you warm if you end up in a cold environment or shelter you from the sun if you end up in a warm one. I first heard this metaphor from Dr. Roch Perara from Strategique, and I think it perfectly exemplifies the challenge we all face as we look out into the workplace of the future. We are alive at an exciting time. The fourth industrial revolution is upon us, and for the first time in history, the vast majority of people have access to the transformational tools in one way or another. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, and cyber-physical systems are changing our world in ways we can't even imagine. But there is one thing we can be certain of. This industrial revolution will be similar to the previous three in one important way. Many jobs will be eliminated forever, and many more new ones created, most of which we have yet to even imagine. Consider this. The World Economic Forum predicts that 65% of children entering primary school right now will end up in a job or role that doesn't exist yet. This is equal parts exciting and terrifying. We can take some comfort in the fact that organizations like Accenture, PwC, and the WEF predict that artificial intelligence alone will grow the size of the global economy by more than $13 trillion by 2030. And a few trends have come to the fore which seem to be at this point unstoppable. The first one, 65.2 million people in Canada and the United States alone identify themselves as currently working in the gig economy. That simply means that they view themselves more as freelancers doing work for customers and less in the traditional employee-employer relationship. Now, these two issues alone pose a massive challenge for our legacy culture. Organizations are ill-prepared to accommodate for this change, and the system that we have in place to get people ready for this brave new world is outdated. Past industrial revolutions have seen us move people from agricultural fields in the country into factories located in the city. And to facilitate the required transformation in skills, we created a system. Classrooms with rows of desks, bells to signal the start and finish of shifts, and production in batches. Congratulations to the class of 2019. We have, in essence, created a just-in-case versus just-in-time system of education. And I'm sure we can all remember a time when we were in class in school learning something that we were quite certain at the time we would never use again. And in many cases, we were right. Now, to be clear, there are some excellent people doing their level best to turn this system in the direction of this brave new world. It is indeed a Herculean task. And the system is changing, but cannot possibly keep the pace set by artificial intelligence and machine learning. Some examples of this: business schools are having a discussion now of transforming from a degree model to a membership model. And the concept there being there would be a lower cost, lower time initiation, followed by multiple interactions with the school for the balance of your career. It's time for a mindset change. Now, full disclosure, I have a university degree. It's not a shocking piece of information, certainly doesn't make me unique. I do keep my degree in a very special place. It's in the basement, beside the furnace. Not to worry, it's protected from water damage by a plastic lid to a storage bin. Now, it's not that I'm not proud of having gotten a degree, it's simply that it doesn't impact my life in any way and hasn't for many years. See, shortly after I started my studies, I realized I was not going to continue on in that field. But my goal was to get a degree, and I did. Perhaps a better goal could have been to determine what it is I wanted to accomplish and what required skills did I need. If I'd done that, then my degree is but a milestone on a journey of lifelong learning. So, our system right now is kind of like focusing on the wedding versus focusing on the relationship, and we need to change that. There is a growing trend right now away from credential-based work environment and to skills-based work environment. And because that's the case, we have to reorient our thinking from that of goal completion to that of skills attainment. Employers in the future are not going to hire an MBA. They're going to hire a set of skills to do a job optimally. They're not going to hire a financial analyst. They're going to hire a set of skills to do a job optimally. And this is, if you think this is far-fetched, consider the fact that we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what artificial intelligence alone can do in this field. But this is antithetical to how we currently think. I can't tell you how many times I've met somebody, and in the first 10 minutes of meeting them, they tell me where they went to school. It's part of our social norms. And for many people, it's a major part of their personal identity. But here's the thing. The world of work doesn't care anymore. And it's going to care even less in the future. So let's try this. Let's each of us build our own skills inventory. By yourself or in conjunction with others that you trust, ask yourself these questions. What are you good at? What do people turn to you for? And what gives you energy? Now, the purpose of this exercise is to be brutally honest with yourself. But once complete, what you'll have is an accurate skills inventory of your current set of skills. Now, Bernard Marr recently published an article that lists 10 key skills that are required to be successful in the workplace of the future. This list includes things like emotional intelligence, creativity, and adapting to change. These are great examples of robust competencies or skills that you should consider packing on your ship. Regardless of what the future looks like, these skills will help you succeed. But this list is just an opinion. You should make your own. Now, I have to issue a bit of a warning here. I have said already that we have a system that has as its underpinning a dominant logic of goal completion. So when I issue this challenge, it's not a finite task. Much in the same way you wouldn't get your blood work done and go to the doctor, get your results and say, I'm good, never need to do that again. So too is this a journey, it's not a destination. So once you've done your skills inventory and you've created your own list of robust competencies, then what you should do is see gaps. You will have gaps, and you need to develop those gaps. In order to do so effectively, we know from research that you need to create support mechanisms to do so. We already do it unconsciously in so many aspects of our lives. We have book clubs and social groups. We have cycling groups and all kinds of things that we actually fortify time in our schedule to develop those needs. And I'm recommending you do the same. Find a group of like-minded people and with diverse skills and help each other with getting your skills inventory, creating your list of robust competencies, and building on your gaps. Imagine a world in which a central part of our social structure are these skills groups. And as you move, grow, and expand in certain areas, so too will the composition of your skill group need to do the same with you. The evergreen nature of these connections means that we'll need to create structures to facilitate these connections. Maybe like Tinder for skills development. And don't say that's what it's already for. Listen, the world of work is changing, and it's changing quickly. And this represents a massive opportunity for all of us. We will look back on this time as the single greatest opportunity each one of us had to transform our lives and build purpose and meaning, whatever that means to you. The transformation in the landscape has created the opportunity for all of us to be anything you want to be and to do anything you can imagine. Barriers of all kinds are being pushed aside. Age, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, geographic location, and financial status are all being pushed aside for us. But they are being replaced by a world that can best be described as a meritocracy of skills. And it's incumbent upon all of us to embrace that change and help ourselves and the ones that we love make the transition. So, I will tell you this. Indeed, my message is for all people ages 5 to 100. After watching this talk, build a skills inventory of your own. Make a list of robust competencies that you think will help you be successful in the future, and identify where your gaps are and build structures around you in order to support the development. But above all else, make sure you remember, it's a journey and it's not a destination. So, as we all sail off into the fog of the new world of work, let me ask you this question. What will you pack on your ship? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Outstanding talk. I was first thinking two things. First, what's my skills inventory? I'm like, I look good in brown. I got an afro. No, anyway. So there are some seats right at the very front. The angle is high, but it's really good-looking people on stage. So come on to the front. Thank you. Whoever whistled at me, I'll take it. You got to get it where you can. All right?
The humility.
I want to remind you while you're voting, there is a few votes. Yes, I've just made this up for the best host. Sunny and I will be competing, so we'll take votes after. All right, Sunny. So far, who is your favorite talk?
Oh, Ivan, you know what? They're all like babies to me. I love them all so much. They're all like my children.
Nice political answer.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
Thanks for coming back. Anybody at the back still? There's some few seats in the front here. Don't stand if it's a really good sight line from the front. Just hard on the neck, but other than that, kick it to you.
All right, welcome back after the second break. We've got 3 more great talks, 1 more great presenter. But first, we're going to take a little minute. I wanted to do an experiment about the power of positive thinking. So I am looking for a volunteer from the audience. There he is. This is my volunteer. He didn't really volunteer. Come on up. Let's give a round of applause for Josh, the reluctant volunteer. Hi, Josh. How are you? Can you tell us where you're from?
Sure, my name's Josh. I'm from Toronto.
Is it just me, or did she pick the best-looking guy in the crowd?
All right, so the power of positive thinking. So what I've asked of Josh is going to think about a time in recent history where he did something great. He did something he's proud of, something he's happy about. And while he's thinking, can you think of that time? Okay, can you share that with the audience?
Sure. For Thanksgiving weekend, I recently baked like 5 huge batches of cayenne brownies and got some really great reviews from friends and family and colleagues who've never tried those before. So.
All right, cayenne brownies, who even knew? Okay, so what I'm going to ask of Josh, do you have any shoulder injuries? No. Okay, awesome. I should have probably asked that first. Okay, you're going to stand with your feet about shoulder width apart. Okay, you're going to put your right arm up in the air. Okay, no, just here. Ambitious. And I'd like you to close your eyes, and I want you to think about that awesome, successful feeling when you bake the cayenne brownies. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push your arm down, and you're going to try to resist me while you think about your success and your happiness. Okay? Ready? I'm going to start slow, and then I'm going to push down. Okay, all right, he's strong. He looks strong, and he is strong. Okay, thank you. You can put that down. Okay, now, part 2 of the experiment is the opposite. I'm going to get Josh to think about a time in recent history where he is not proud of himself, where he did something he was embarrassed about or ashamed about. I am not going to ask you to share this with the TEDx audience. Is there lots to choose from? Okay, lots to choose from, but I won't make him share it. So I want you to get that moment of not greatness, implanted in your mind, okay? Same thing, arm up, eyes closed, think about the moment of shame. All right. Stay for a sec. So what was that? What happened there? Was that my muscles? Did I get stronger? Did you get weaker? No, that's the power of positive thinking versus negative thinking. We know that our thoughts influence our beliefs, which influence our actions. So the takeaway from this little experiment is that whenever possible, choose an optimistic view. Now, without further ado, Ivan will be back on to introduce our next performer. Thank you, Josh.
Dang, like a sports psychologist. All right, our next entertainer, Sal Costa. Everybody says you're a rock star, you're this, we actually have a platinum selling rock star here. I'm not sure which is better, his voice, his talk, or his hairdo, but he is amazing. Without further ado, to tell his story about how he hit rock bottom and his path and journey to redemption as well, Sal Costa.
Well, have your way. It can get pretty dark when you're not shining on the stage. If you're reaching for the stars, pushing everybody out the way. I never tried to steal the light, didn't need to be a fight to hold me down all the time. So when no one really knows you, but everybody knows your name, I hope you like your taste of fame. In Pennsylvania, you said I was wrong. It could have been, should have been you. You text me saying that I don't belong. It was just another one of your cheap attacks, trying to stab me in the back. But what was I supposed to do? Now it's on you. It can get pretty dark when you're not shining on the stage. If you're reaching for the stars, pushing everybody out the way. I never tried to steal the light, didn't need to be a fight to hold me down all the time. So when no one really knows you, but everybody knows your name, I hope you like your taste of fame. How do you like to be alone? Can't even smell unless you're stoned. You had a girlfriend, but now I'm gone. So long. Oh, it can get pretty dark when you're not shining on the stage. If you're reaching for the stars, pushing everybody out the way. I never tried to steal the light, didn't need to be a fight to hold me down all the time. So when no one really knows you, but everybody knows your name, I hope you like your taste of fame. You had a girlfriend, and you had a girlfriend, but you had to throw it all away.
Check. Hello, hello. There was a reoccurring dream I had every night as a kid.
This dream was so vivid. It was so exciting that there were times I thought to my little self that maybe it actually wasn't a dream at all, and maybe it was a memory. You see, all kids dream without any filter or any judgment. They just dream. Some to be astronauts, professional athletes, or superheroes. My dream was that of my older self, looking as I do right now, playing in a rock and roll band to an arena-filled crowd, screaming my name. Because I wanted to be a rock star. You see, the dream started off the same every single night. I'd be backstage as I would hear the rumbling, roaring of the audience. I'd put my guitar on, I'd head to the stage, strike a loud chord on the guitar, the stage lights would explode, and everyone would lose their minds. It was awesome. But it made me feel so warm inside, so much so that for years, that dream put me to sleep at night after night after night, so peacefully. As a kid, I spent every waking moment playing the guitar, singing, and songwriting. I wanted to know everything about it in the deepest way possible. Music came first before anything, and in those days, my first love was music. And it was mad, and it was deep. My parents remember me hiding all of my toys and all of my games when my friends would come over, so they would be forced to play music with me. If they didn't want to jump behind the drum set and play, I would send them right home. If they did jump behind the drum set and played but they weren't serious about it, I'd send them right home. Little did anybody who came in contact with me know that I was constantly auditioning them to be my future band members. At that point in my life, music was the driving force for my life, and simply put, I was happy. So I started to notice that this dream, which was once, happening at night, was now occupying my mind during the day. And I would be in school, and my teachers would call out my name many times without any response because I would be lost in my head thinking about musical ideas. At one of my many high school jobs, I remember my bosses begging me to complete tasks, which would go uncompleted, because I'd be in my head thinking about what my future band might look like, or who would be a great producer to make our first record. But the main takeaway is this: at that point in my life, to just jam with other people who were passionate, to create, I felt at home and happy. High school came to a close. I dropped out of my first year of university, and I began to see all of my peers go on to accomplish great things, while I stayed back and played in front of 5 people at the local clubs. I knew I didn't want what they had, but I wanted what everyone else wants. I wanted the title. I wanted all the financial accolades they were all beginning to achieve. Time began to pass me by, and I no longer enjoyed playing music anymore. I reached a point where all I did was spend all of my time trying to figure out how I could figure a way to make my music into a financially successful business. I wanted to feel validated, and I wanted to feel worthy too. So what was once my sacred passion had now become the vessel which I completely exploited to become rich, to become powerful, to become famous. And that reoccurring dream had now turned into a reoccurring prayer in which every night I would go to bed just begging the universe or whoever was listening to me to just let me make it. It was as if a switch just went off in my head, and becoming big and powerful and known was more important than my love for music. But they say be careful what you wish for because it just might come true, right? Well, after years of hustling, I hit my big break. I would join a band which would go on to sign a major American record deal with one of the biggest record companies in the world, Def Jam. Our debut single would reach #1 on the American Billboard Top 100 rock charts, becoming the biggest song in rock in America that year. It was the top 5 most purchased music video on iTunes at the time. It went gold, then platinum. In Canada, we were nominated for a Juno Award. I was walking the red carpet with the likes of Neil Young, hanging around celebrities all the time, and the elite of the elite, women around me all the time, drugs being offered at all time, and more alcohol around me than water. I remember walking off stages like Madison Square Garden, thinking to myself and just having this feeling of déjà vu. This was my childhood dream manifested into reality. But one thing was different. I wasn't happy. It was no longer comforting, and I didn't feel fulfilled. Here I was, literally living my dream, but I wasn't sure why anymore. I'd lost the love. I'd put such an immense amount of pressure on myself to just make it that I reached a point where I wasn't even loving it anymore. And it was a pretty scary time in my life. I remember this dream so comfortingly putting me to sleep, and now here I am, wide awake night after night, anxiety-filled, depressed, and sick. So I began taking a very highly addictive anxiety medication, which many doctors know is a medication that's harder to get off of than heroin. I continued touring, playing shows, circling the drain deeper and deeper into the darkness, and now not only was I taking this crazy anxiety medication, I was taking multiple sleep medications, an antidepressant, ADHD medication, and on occasions, painkillers. I wasn't even close to 30 years old, at the prime of my life, and here I am taking some of the world's heaviest narcotics every day, multiple times a day, to just feel like I could survive. There were times I couldn't get out of bed because I was in so much physical agony that I couldn't even walk, just because of the stress. I would cry uncontrollably. At the time, I didn't even know why. I would just weep and weep and weep. And then I'd wipe the tears away. I'd put the guitar back on, and I would head to the stage, which had now become my battlefield. I didn't tell anybody how I was feeling. For years, I kept those feelings inside because I was so scared and ashamed of even thinking about walking away from something I spent my entire life pursuing. And even though I was suffering so deeply on the inside, I chose to stick with it and suffer out of fear of having to walk away and start all over. There was a night, I remember doing a meet and greet with fans after the show, an autograph signing or whatever, and just standing there, and all of a sudden, this felt like a bolt of lightning, just went right through my body. And I thought I was having a heart attack. And after a few moments of collecting myself, I realized that it was a panic attack. And around this period of my life, I had many panic attacks because of what I was going through, but nothing ever like this. I remember just going completely blank and not knowing what to do. And this primal energy just took over me, telling me to run. So I did. I just ran. I ran and I ran and I ran. I ran right out of the venue and further down the street. But what was I running from? I was in no immediate danger. Was I running from the monster I had created? All of the lies I had been living? Myself? It was at this point I realized that I could not run any further, and all of the terrible things I thought people would think about me for walking away no longer outweighed how lost and lonely I felt. I realized that for years I was living my life as Sal the rock star, but neglected all these other pieces of my life. But the scariest thing about it was at that point in my life, I didn't even know what those other pieces were anymore because I was so far into it. And I didn't even know who I was. I lost myself completely. This is when I hit rock bottom. It was the scariest and hardest point of my entire life, but somehow I mustered up the courage to just walk away from it all cold turkey and to begin the process of rediscovering who I really was. So I began working in a kitchen as a cook out of sheer desperation to find some other passion in my life that I could love other than music. And as I began to cook more and more, this love and passion for creating beautiful dishes began to grow and grow and grow. And it triggered a flood of memories that I had buried a long time ago. Some of the happiest moments of my childhood, which was me as a little boy, being in the kitchen with my grandparents and my parents as they would make these homemade, handmade Italian meals night after night after night. And I remembered in those moments how centered and how happy I felt and how nourished my soul was. So it was through cooking that I began to see that there was more to me than Sal the rock star. And all of those nights, I went to bed dreaming about being a rock star. There were so many other pieces, parts, moments, and memories that made me who I was, that made me the musician I would become. My family, animals, traveling, exploring, martial arts, food, the list goes on. And I realized that for years, I neglected all of these other pieces. You see, the human body cannot function off a diet of only chocolate. It'll survive, but not well. It's the same thing with the human spirit. If you deny it of everything that makes it whole, it'll never flourish. This was a massive revelation for me. And I started to see things change because of it. That light, that sparkle, that love for life that I had when I was a kid started to creep back. I made peace with myself, my new life, and honestly, I was happy again. But as they say, we plan and God laughs. A couple of months ago, I happened to randomly reconnect with some old touring friends of mine, Brian Byrne and Dave Benedict. Brian and Dave were also in big platinum-selling rock bands. They also lost their passion and drive for music. And we really bonded through this common thread. So we decided to fly to the West Coast to spend 10 days in a studio together to just write, create, hang out, just to see what would happen, to see if there was something still there. It was pure magic. It was as if I had never put down the guitar. Music, melodies, lyrics, everything was just flowing through me so freely. It was electric. I hadn't cracked that many smiles and guttural laughs doing anything music-related in years. The love was back. The drive was back. The passion was back. But the best part about it was this, was that I was doing it for the right reasons. And it felt good. It felt the way it did when I was a kid. And you see, it's only because I decided to walk away from it all and know in my heart of hearts, that I didn't need a music career to feel whole, that I found myself. And the most beautiful part about that is music found me again. You know, there's nothing in the world like playing in front of 50,000 screaming fans. Nothing. But there's something better. The sound of my kids laughing, cozy nights at home, creating music with people I love, true friendship, and family. You know, I've gone through a lot of crazy things in my life, and I've had a ridiculous amount of experiences being a rock star. And I'm young, and I'm sure there will be a lot more. But if there's one thing in my life that I am most grateful for, it's hitting rock bottom. Thank you.
Thank you, Sal, for sharing that beautiful, moving story. Next, we have Mark Quattrochi. Mark has a great story. Mark is a traveler. Have you ever found yourself sitting beside someone on a bus or a train or a plane and felt, I want to connect with that person, but you just couldn't quite do it? Well, Mark encourages us to start with something very simple. He encourages us to start with a simple hello. Mark did something amazing. He solo biked from China to Canada. It took him 2 years. He raised $50,000 for 5 different schools, and he actually cycled, biked, and visited all of them. Mark is formerly a school teacher and now is a leadership facilitator and speaker with the WE organization. Please put your hands together for Mark Q.
I laced up my shoes and packed up my bags on the first day of 740 days ahead. 740 days on a bicycle ride around the world. And as I set out on that very first morning into the wild yonder with a 100-pound bicycle beneath my feet, my greatest adventure was about to begin. Because over the next 2 years, 35,000 kilometers of cycling lay before me. From southern China, where I was living and working as a teacher, back home to Canada. This solo, unsupported journey took me through 40 countries and 5 continents. Through Asia, through Europe, Africa, South as well as North America, from the seat of a bicycle, to help fundraise over $50,000 to build 5 sustainable schoolhouses in 5 countries around the world, so that young people could go to school in a safe place every single day and pursue some of their greatest dreams and passions in life. 250 acts of kindness, 45 bicycle tubes, 12 tires, 6 pairs of shoes, 2 years, and 1 bicycle later, I made my way back home to Canada. It was an incredible journey to say the least, and I can't wait to share some of those stories with all of you here today. But before I'm able to share some of those stories, I have a quick question for everyone in the audience. How many of you have ever been sitting beside someone on a bus, on a plane, on a train, or even at an event like this, for example, and you want to talk to someone around you that you had never met before, but you just didn't for whatever reason? Come on, be honest. Yeah, okay, looks like most of us in the audience here, at one point or another, petrified by our own fear of how someone might react So unfortunately, we just do nothing. However, all of that fear and nervousness can be solved with one truly simple word, and that is just hello. Hello, hola, privet, jambo, namaste. These are just some of the tickets that can be used to help us understand what it means to be human. My bicycle ride around the world taught me how we can all contribute to a more united and a more connected world by saying hello just a little bit more often. It also taught me the value of a really nice bicycle seat because, let's be honest, all that cycling is a recipe for one incredibly sore butt. However, now that I finished this bike ride and I live back here in Canada, I often get lots of questions about what this journey was like. I get asked, weren't you sore from all that cycling? But the two main questions I get asked, unfortunately, are, weren't you scared and weren't you lonely? Now, the short and sweet answer to that question is no, because, for the most part, I never needed to be. And I'll explain why a little bit later. But the very fact that that question is top of mind for many people is a testament to the level of trust that we're willing to give those that we share our planet with. Because one of the main reasons why I set out on this adventure, on this journey around the world in the first place, was actually just to meet people. I'd done a fair amount of traveling before this. I'd done motorcycle trips through places like Mongolia, through Laos, as well as China. I backpacked through incredible places like Myanmar, through Bangladesh, as well as Panama. But I always felt on these trips like there was something missing. I always seemed to find myself on a bus, on a train, or even on my motorcycle, racing past all the people that actually made up the country where I was traveling as I headed off to that next big site that I had to see. However, I found these places that I had to see really didn't make me much happier. The happiest moments on my cycling journey around the world were actually those moments of true, genuine human connection, laughing and learning alongside people. And so I chose the bicycle as a slow ticket, keyword there, slow, as a slow ticket to enable more of those special moments to happen. Or at least, so I hoped. However, after a few weeks of cycling, back when I started this bike ride back in China, after a few weeks, I found myself hopelessly lonely. I thought for some reason at the beginning of this trip that people would just come up and talk to me. Because obviously I was so naturally interesting. Found out pretty quickly that was a hard no, that was not the case. And I found it really difficult to meet people at the beginning of this journey. I thought for some reason, as I said, that people would just come up and talk to me. I thought I was so worried on a budget of less than $10 a day, how someone else might react if I went up to them, said hello, and asked for a safe place to camp. As if they would suddenly turn into some sort of monster and chase me down the street with a broom just for asking. All things that you kind of conjure up in your mind as you're cycling alone for days. Because for days, it seemed like the only person that I was talking to was, you guessed it, myself. And I acknowledged that that needed to change, and that needed to change pretty quickly. And so, fed up with how things were going over the last few weeks, I said to myself, naturally, because, I said to myself, the next person that you meet, you need to go up to them, say hello, smile, you can do it, and ask for a safe place to camp for the night. You got this. It's not that scary. And the next man that I asked was absolutely thrilled at the idea. In no time at all, I had my bicycle wheeled into their courtyard. I had my tent set up right in front of his home. I don't know why I needed to be that close, but it was. And I sat down to this amazing meal of spicy-style Szechuan food in central China. And as I sat down to this incredible meal, I was sipping some piping hot Chinese green tea and sharing stories from my travels with this family that I just met about 5 minutes before that, and my face was hurting. And it was hurting because for the first time on this trip, I was smiling from ear to ear. And I thought, maybe I'll try this saying hello thing again tomorrow. And that's exactly what I did. And the next night, I found myself camped out at a monastery. The night after that, I found myself at a police station. Fortunately, though, for me, not behind bars, I was welcome to stay in one of the many offices from the incredibly kind police that worked there. And then the night after that, I found myself camped out next to a beautiful lake under a beautiful set of stars later that night. And this continued over the next 2 years. And over the next 2 years, I practiced saying hello every single day. And it took some getting used to, but eventually, throughout the course of my journey, it allowed me to become the humble recipient of over 250 acts of kindness. 250 times where people went out of their way to help me. Yeah, me. This guy. This dirty, white, privileged, confused-looking guy on a bicycle with a big beard. However, I'm not talking about someone just helping to fill up my water bottles, because that happened pretty much every day, and I was so grateful that people were doing that, considering some of the places around the world I was traveling. What I'm talking about is someone meeting me for about 5 minutes, welcoming me into their home, or offering me a safe place to camp, or refusing to let me pay for bicycle parts. And I was often traveling through some of the most difficult parts of our planet. And now in my daily life, as well as my work as a speaker and as facilitator, it's my goal to continue to pay forward those acts of kindness on a regular basis. Because all of this was possible because eventually, and the key word here again is eventually, I was ready and willing to walk up to someone, look them in the eye, see them for who they were as a person, say hello, and start the conversation. And make one of the most powerful connections of all, a human connection. Sometimes, though, even I needed to remind myself to assume that kindness first, instead of that negative alternative that our mind often goes to as we're meeting someone new or even crossing someone late at night. Because as I cycled across the border from Uzbekistan into Afghanistan, my heart was beating out of my chest, adrenaline pumping into every single vein in my body, and my senses on high alert as I made my way into the country. And I mean, I'll be the first to admit, even though I've been practicing this saying hello thing for the last couple months, I was going in with some pretty strong stereotypes, some pretty negative thoughts of what I might encounter as I cycled across the border into Afghanistan alone on a bicycle. However, all of that fear and nervousness was shattered as soon as I crossed into Afghanistan, and a young man came up to me and he said, "Hello." And he asked, "What's your name on Facebook?" All of my preconceptions, yeah, amazing, right? All of my preconceptions were immediately disarmed, and the days after, every person I met was so incredibly welcoming to me. Like this man right here, Haj Abdul, who welcomed me into his shop and sat me down and insisted that we ate together and shared the stories of our lives. He'd seen incredible changes throughout his lifetime, through kings, through war, prosperity, and decline of his country. But at the end of our conversation, he leaned in and he said to me, he said, "Soon my time here is going to be finished." He said, "This is your time to make a change." In an age of negative news stories that perpetuate our feeling of fear of each other as well as the rest of the world, what is not recycled on repeat are the stories of good. And personally, I cannot remember the last time I heard a good story coming out of Afghanistan. However, on this journey around the world, I found the opposite of what I was always told or made to believe. And because I went into Afghanistan with the sole intent to learn, to explore, and to meet the people that live there, it ended up being the kindest country on my entire journey. And I experienced similar levels of kindness because I went into places like Sudan, South Africa, Colombia, Mexico. And I found that in these places, that all these people are just that, people. Wanting some of the same things in life, things like food, things like water, shelter, but also human connection. And this last one, fortunately for all of us, is one that we have the opportunity to influence on a regular basis, surrounded by a sea of people that we normally don't talk to. Each and every one of us has the power to make that human connection. Because I did on this cycling journey around the world what all of us have the power to do each and every day. And I'm not telling you that you need to go out and ride a bicycle around the world in order to meet people. I'm not telling you you need to do that. But what I'm saying is each and every one of us in our daily lives, we have the opportunity to make a human connection and be open-minded enough to receive that connection in turn. Marcus Aurelius was an ancient Roman Stoic as well as emperor, and he once said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." And as a huge advocate of Stoicism myself, I truly believe that if we do the hard things first and we do them each and every day, the reverberating effects felt throughout our world will be astounding. And so my ask of all of you, my simple challenge for all of you now, is to go out into the world, to start that conversation, and to say more often and with confidence to one another a simple hello. À la prochaine, hasta la vista, zaijian, I'll see you later.
A professional, love it. Reminds me of all that's good in the world, which we sometimes forget about. Okay, I'm gonna live the last plug because we're down to our last two folks. We got some sweatshirts back there. Why do I feel like I'm a peddler? We got some sweatshirts back there. I'm trying to make them look as good as possible. The entire time I'm up here, my stomach is sucked in, so these sweatshirts look good on me. All right? So, like, you got Christmas, you got Thanksgiving, I'm sure, you got Kwanzaa. Like, whatever you got for a holiday, there's something that we should be, perhaps. And check out the back. Some advertising. What? Please don't look at my bum again. All right? Next. We've got Keith Jones coming up. He is a gentleman that decided to quit the corporate life and pursue what he wanted to do, designing to create a better world. He sold everything and packed up and decided to change the world. He measures impact not by how much money we make, but by the good that we do in the world. Oh, I love this. Without any further ado, please put your hands together for Mr. Keith Jones. Bring the energy.
What if I told you you had the power to design the future? With one little thing, and it's already inside of you. It's actually inside all of us. If we flip one little thing around, we can create a better future for ourselves, for the next generation, for the entire world. We just have to start with good. But before I get into my talk, I want you to do me a little favor. I want everyone to close their eyes. Yeah, close your eyes just for 1 second. And I want you to imagine a really great moment in time. A memory of you as a child, 4 or 5, maybe 6 years old. This memory brings you a lot of joy. I want you to think about this. Now I want you to think about how this makes you feel. How do you feel right now? A lot of smiles out there. That's cool. All right, you can open up your eyes. We're going to come back to it. We're going to go back to that idea later. My journey began with 2 amazing parents. That's my mom, Big B, my dad, Mr. Jones. My mom was a nurse in the ER and the OR for 30 years. She'd spend 12-hour days working away, and then she'd come home and raise 4 kids. Just a really kind person. And my dad, he was a farmer his whole life. He could build and fix and make just about anything. Farmers really are the jack of all trades. I'm lucky. I got a bit of both of them in me. This kindness and this creativity. A lot of people aren't lucky and have great parents like that. And they don't have great parents like that. I grew up playing hockey and loving art and building and making things in the garage. When I went to design school, I graduated and I started working in the corporate world, like a lot of other people. And I worked my way up the corporate ladder. That's what this icon is, making my way up the corporate ladder. Designer, art director, creative director, strategist. Did some really great work. Pro sports teams, Olympics, broadcast media, building and launching some of the biggest brands in Canada. All great stuff, all stuff I'm really, really proud of. But at the end of the day, I wasn't making much difference. I wasn't making impact in the world. So I found myself volunteering, giving back to the community. I do shoreline cleanups. I do a bunch of other different projects like food programs, women's shelters. This is a photo of us last Christmas. It's my sister, my mom, Big B, myself, and my amazing partner, Vicky. For the past 10 years, on Christmas Day, my mom and I would go to hospitals and hand out tangerines and candy canes to the staff and the patients and the geriatrics that work there. All the geriatrics that are stuck there. This is probably the highlight of my year. It's a really amazing experience. It's actually really funny. You get all these seniors and these old timers that would chirp me for being a skinny Santa and say, Mrs. Claus needs to fatten you up. And it's just a really great experience. And some of these geriatrics, it's kind of their last Christmas. So for me to just do that for one day, it's a pretty incredible feeling. So I spent my days working in the corporate world and then nights and weekends giving back a little bit. I started to realize giving back on the side isn't going to be enough to fix some of the problems we have in this world right now. We live in polarizing times with polarizing politicians. There's there's 235,000 Canadians that experience homelessness every year. That's a pretty big number. 1 in 5 youth don't have access to mental health. And in contrast, they need mental health services more than ever. Youth, suicide, depression, they're all at an all-time high. And the average Canadian, they throw out 1,500 pounds of trash every year. You know, the temperature is rising. 20 of the last 22 years have been the hottest on record. Polar ice caps are melting. Guess what, guys? One of those polar ice caps, they're in our backyard. It's bad stuff. We wonder why all these kids are having suicidal thoughts, depression, and anxiety. What hope are we giving them? I don't know. Why? Because of money. We live in Canada, one of the richest, nicest countries in the world, but we don't seem to be doing that much about it. You know, because we work in a system of capitalism. Capitalism is about getting money at the beginning, getting money at the end. There's only one thing in mind, is making as much money as possible. The competition for money is the challenge, not the money itself. And if you look up capitalism in the dictionary, it doesn't care about you or I, and it doesn't care about the planet. It's the fundamentals that just say get money. That's a fish, by the way. A little rough on the sketches. You know, it's money first. Money over morals. So I started asking, what happens if you flip it around? What happens if we flip it around and put morals over money? What if we start with something good? And that's kind of what I did. I started an agency called And Good Company. Essentially, we exist to make the world a better place. We're not here to work in a sector. We're not here to work for a specific client. We're here to make the world a better place. And we're going to go out and make change in the world, and then we're going to find ways to fund it. It's about people, ideas, and work, all with good at the front. And I think if we put this stuff together, we can create a better world. In our first initiative, my amazing partner Vicky and I said, let's go give something back. If we're all about making change in the world, let's not talk about making the world a better place. Let's go do it. Let's drive around and help some people. Seems like a good idea. This idea started to expand. It's starting to expand to using our talents to make the world a better place. You know, Vicky, she's a digital marketing expert. I'm a brand guy, kind of creative, obviously. What if we give away branding to charities and nonprofits? Those people that are making the world a better place for all of us. You know, amplify the good. Instead of going and working at a soup kitchen, what if we give the tools to these leaders that are helping so many? And then if we ask some of our creative friends that might be out in the audience, let's ask them to help us as well. So this idea called Brand Ban started to form. In July, we built a website, called for submissions for some of Canada's most innovative and impactful charities. In August, we built a van, a mobile content studio, a work-live space, 72 square feet, lots of room, enough to put your whole life into, include all of Vicky's shoes. It's this interesting idea of flipping things around and creating your own studio that you can live out of. And then we got to work. We didn't know what we were doing, but we just started. Like, we didn't know where we were going aside from these charity groups, and we didn't know how to get there aside from the GPS maps. And then we just started meeting with them, seeing how we could help support them, what we could do with them. We drove to the East Coast in September and drove to the West Coast in October. And all the while, we supported them with creative talent. Designers, writers, copywriters, illustrators. This photo here, this is Sean, he's in Oakville, Andy in Vancouver, and Wendy in Ottawa. This is one of our first initiatives. That lady, I don't know if you can see with the curly hair, that's Jessie Jollymore. She's a dietitian in Halifax. She runs a program called Hope Blooms. What they do is they mentor at-risk youth. They do it through a greenhouse. They use a vegetable garden after work to mentor these kids. They grow vegetables. The vegetables they grow are turned into salad dressings, and the salad dressings are sold at a national grocer, and the money from that goes back into a scholarship fund for the kids. This is a dietitian using creativity to make the world better. That's pretty cool. These three gentlemen, 3 retirees, It's Leo, Maurice, and Paul Alfred. They run a program on the East Coast called EnviroPlus and Second Chance Workshop. Essentially, they waste divert all of this furniture that's ended up in the landfill, fix it, clean it, repair it, and put it back out into the public. The interesting part about their program is the skills training, the Second Chance Workshop side. They give people that are homeless or on the edge of being homeless, living in shelters, a second chance by skills training them, teaching them new life skills, and giving them an opportunity for something more. Leo, the gentleman on the left that started this program, he took me aside one time, or one day when we were there. He said, Keith, sometimes people just need a second chance. And our system right now isn't set up for second chances. It's kind of survival of the fittest. Similar to their program is a group in TO called Furniture Bank. Now, Furniture Bank, they've been around for 20 years. They do some really cool things. You know, in the 20 years that they've existed, they've helped 100,000 people. They've waste diverted 12,000 tons from the landfill. You know, if you think about it, that's not just furniture that they've saved. That's a lot of people that they've saved. The typical cycle of a product is taking natural resources out of the ground, making something out of it. Someone gets to use it, this object, and then it's thrown in the garbage. That's a linear cycle. Furniture Bank was in a circular economy. So instead of throwing something out at the end, they fix it, repair it, upcycle it, give it to someone else. It gets to have a new home. What you're saving is the environment at the beginning when you're taking natural resources out, and the environment at the end when you're throwing it in the garbage. For all the energy that it takes to produce it, and all the energy it takes to ship it out. So we helped them out with their 20th year anniversary logo. We built some really cool identities for them. This one here takes the infinity symbol and circles it into the 2-0 mark. We helped them out with the House to Homes program. Recidivism with homelessness, it halves, it cuts in half if you have a house that has furniture in it. Without furniture in a house, it's just a box, and people end up back out on the street. And then we worked on their Chair Fair event. This event is an annual gala to raise money for their programs. We took a C and A, created a cute little heart out of it, turned it on its side. There's a little chair in there. I don't know if you can see it. Sorry, nerding out. That's the stuff I get excited about, but it's those little details along the way. Now, this is the design element that I'm talking about when I talk today. It's like designing a better place. And then we applied this creativity to their advertising, to their marketing, to the brochures, to the event experience. We raised an extra 30% in funding that year from this event. They built extra corporate partnerships, but more importantly, we built a toolkit for them to use in the future. This isn't about a one-stop shop. This is about giving people the tools to keep moving forward, professionalize them. This is Ian Bookman. He reached out to us with a project called Bum Run. At first, we thought it was some kind of naked run through the city of Toronto. Turns out it was legit. It's a 5K run to raise awareness for colon cancer. And colon cancer is the second leading cause of death by cancer in Canada. Yes, colon cancer is the second leading cause of death by cancer in Canada. I said that twice for purpose. The reason why is because you don't check it like this, check it like this. Right? There's a social stigma around it. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. A lot of people don't want to get checked. It's crazy. We accepted this project, and a week later, I found out one of my friends that I used to work with, Matt, had colon cancer. And since this talk, this past year, another one of my cousins, second cousin anyway, he has colon cancer. So how do you beat a social stigma? Humor! Buddy Ryan and Mark and some great copywriters, we came up with some really fun taglines with this. We built a full campaign around it. We took the CN Tower, we put it on the cheeks. We create a typeface out of butt cheeks. I don't know if you can see it, but there's little cheeks and all of these little letters and numbers. We create a complete visual language for all of it. We applied it to social media, to advertising. It's not just the B from Bum Run, it's also a finger, a check finger. Maybe it's a directional arrow. We had fun with the entire thing. We turned their Instagram into the buttgram. We had people talking about their butts, taking photos about their butts. If this is the issue, that we're not talking about it, let's help them talk about it. We had a fun poster series, merchandise, t-shirts, hats, brochures, and the medal with the cheeky butt in the middle. This time last year, almost to this day, Vicki and I were driving through Calgary, actually. It was on the edge of the mountains. It was -8. It was a snowstorm. We were sleeping in a van. That's where I met Rob. Rob, Anna, and Lourdes run a program that takes food to people in need. They came to us with a project where they wanted to take food in a bus. Seniors, low-income, indigenous communities. We came up with an identity called Fresh Roots. The name as well. Fresh ways of bringing food to people, fresh food, roots, obviously bus roots, and roots in the ground. We built the identity, a visual language for them. We made a cute little icon based on the city map lines, little leaves coming off the sides. Then we got an illustrator to help us out. This illustrator created this really soft palette, really inviting, really welcoming to all ages and demographics. This is the original illustration, the schematics from 25 years ago. This bus, destined for the landfill, was receiving a new life. And our friends at Mason Studios helped us out with this. They designed the interior of the bus to be a space that everyone would want to get groceries from. This is fully accessible, has 2 ramps at the front and the back, a cold storage unit on the one side, and there's wheelchair accessible as well inside. Racks are low, so kids and seniors can reach them really easily. This is the profile of the new bus. And this is what it looks like now. Come on, this is what it looks like now. This is like 40 people worked on this project. It's amazing. The cool part about it is as we were building this with them over the past year, they got some good ground. They launched in Calgary and they launched in Edmonton. This is 2 stops now. They're continuing to grow this project. They're going to feed probably thousands of extra Canadians now, all because people started helping them and coming together. And this is not me, this is a group of people. They turned a nonprofit into a social enterprise, and a social enterprise almost into a social franchise. I'm not making those words up. I think there's a couple in there, though. You know, a year ago, or I guess a year and a half ago, this is just a sketch. You know, we started out with this sketch on a page called Brand Van. I love this illustration because this shows in a year and a half how you can take an idea and put it into reality. You know, in that same year and a half, we've helped 20 different groups with consulting, you know, built out 13 initiatives, like those big projects I just showed you. We've touched 10 provinces and territories, had 50 volunteers, and they've actually designed a bit of a college course around us. But more importantly, we've given confidence to the leaders of these organizations. We've instilled pride to the people that work there and volunteer there. We've given dignity to the people that receive those services. And we're at Creative Renaissance right now. I don't know if you know this or not, but the tools we have at our disposal have never existed before. Dietitians, retirees, business consultants, they're using creativity every day to make the world a better place. Right now, you can research, write, design, print, ship, sell, deliver, book without leaving the comfort of your house. To an audience, 90% of the world is illiterate right now? If you go back 200 years, only 10% of the world can even read. It's amazing. You know, when I started this project, I thought it would be a rallying call for designers and creators to make the world a better place. It is a rallying call, but it's for all of us to design the future we want to live in. It's through our choices, small choices and large choices. Small choices, like where you buy your coffee, or where you get your clothes, and large choices, like what kind of car you get, or where you work. You know, this t-shirt, it's environmentally friendly, the people that made it had a good job, the farmers, seamstresses, and when I'm done with it, it'll decompose. And the company I work for, it's a good one. I have more. Capitalism, there's good things in it. It creates competition, it creates reward, it creates opportunity, right? But if we put morals in front of it, we create a competition not for money, but a competition for good. Imagine where we could go as a society. Imagine if our money was designed to make the world a better place. I think that's a pretty phenomenal thing. I've never put this many happy faces on a slide in my life. I truly believe this is the future for all of us. If we start with good, put yourself as emotion. You don't have to change the world, but we have to change. Do it together. Do it with your friends, do it with your family, do it with Big B, do it with your colleagues. Do it at work, whatever you have to do. And good. We all know it, right from wrong, good from bad. It's the golden rule. We're all taught it as kids. Every religion is based on it. Don't hit your sister, share your toys, all that stuff, we know it all. Start with good. It's called moral capitalism. If we can put that good first, it'll come back to us. Over the past year and a half, I've designed a better world around me. I've shown that to you. What I haven't shown you is the world I've designed in me. Remember that feeling I asked you to hold on to at the beginning of this conversation? That feeling, if you can remember it now, I get that feeling every day when I make the world a better place. And you can too. Because if you start with good, you can end up with something incredible. Thank you.
A big thanks to Keith. Doesn't he make starting with good seem like an accessible and necessary and kind of an obvious choice? Wonderful stuff. So we have our last speaker for today, everybody. His name is Daniel Scheer. Daniel is the Executive Vice President and CEO of Cossette Advertising, which is one of Canada's largest and most prestigious advertising agencies. Daniel builds a case for creativity. Daniel says that in the face of massive change, in the face of humanity at a crossroads, creativity is our best solution. Creativity makes us happier, creativity makes us stronger, and creativity is good for the world. Put your hands together for Daniel.
How are we doing? All right. I'm going to close this out here, all right? So stay with me. So I'm here, once this presentation gets on, to say that only creativity can get us out of the trouble that we're in right now. And guys, we're in big trouble. There's big stuff going on, and we've got to tackle it. So only creativity can get us out of this. What do I mean by this? This is what I mean by this. Globally, anxiety is up with everybody, all populations. Globally, confidence is down. And it's driven by big things and small things. Small things like the cost of food and gas, relatively small. Really, really big things like the existential threat of climate change. We've also got personal finances. We've got things like job automation. Am I going to have a job in the future? And of course, things like the political environment. So bad, in fact, that CBC News recently reported that 72% of Canadians are worried about the future or somewhat worried about the future. A really big number if you really think about the weight that society has to carry with that worry in all of our brains. On top of that, literally the lungs of the earth are on fire as we speak, and we can't, as a global population, figure ourselves out to come together and help that rainforest issue and ultimately help the climate along. Huge issue. So, only creativity can get us out of this. That's the this. Here's what I mean by creativity. I really like this definition. It's about bringing good things into the world that otherwise wouldn't exist. It's about the noble act of pushing back the darkness and bringing hope to despair. I really like that. For me, a little wordy. To me, what I would say is creativity, simply put, is applied optimism. It's the idea that there's a better thing out there, and that if we are smart and choiceful in the way that we design towards it, we can get to better. And the good thing is, creativity is good in a lot of different ways. It's good for the economy. In 2015 alone, over $500 billion was contributed to the global economy through the creative economy. So we like that. It's good for the environment as well. Really like this quote. It talks a lot about the sort of existing generations and future generations and what we can do in terms of getting to better practices for people and for culture and for ultimately the planet, and ultimately getting to a more sustainable development path into the future. I mean, we need to look absolutely no further than Greta. She's 16, she's from Sweden, and not only has she now recently created the biggest movement and some of the biggest strikes ever on climate, she's actually mobilized the universe in the biggest way possible on any topic in the last many hundreds of years. So big shout to Greta. So that's a big act. Greta, massive, millions and millions of people. Check out her Instagram, follow her, please, 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 and get involved. Small act. This is a little grocery store in Vietnam that instead of using single-use plastic to wrap their fruits and veg, what they said is, why don't we use banana leaf? Why don't we get rid of that plastic? Why don't we stop it from ending up in the oceans, and we'll talk about that later, and actually get to a more sustainable, progressive, and super affordable solution. Big acts and small acts matter. Creativity is also good for our health. According to Forbes and Medical News, what's really cool is it increases your actual happiness. The actual act of being creative helps being more happy. It reduces the onset of dementia, which is super cool. It improves mental health. It boosts your immune system. And ultimately, again, being creative or leveraging creativity makes you smarter. So it's actually good for you. It's good for you as a mom or a dad, a parent, somebody at work, a brother, a cousin, a sister, a brother. Creativity is good for our health. This is probably why we're seeing stuff like this. On the left, we've got a adult coloring book. If you haven't done it, I highly recommend it. Super cool. Really, really sort of tunes you out, and it gets you into a different mental state that we'll talk about. Lego jumped on board in the middle. That's Forma, which is literally Lego for adults. How cool is that? And you know, they got cooler structures than all the stuff that the kids like, which is awesome. Also, escape rooms. If you've been doing an escape room, it's the same sort of idea, which is how do you put people together and challenge them to come up with a solution? And you have to use a different part of your brain to get there. So it's good for your health. Perhaps at the risk of overstating it, also it's the most important skill in the world. And I'm not making this up, just being a guy that works in the creative industry. This is according to the World Economic Forum. So look on the right side here, declining. What are the declining skills of 2022 moving forward? You got things like manual dexterity, understanding memory, management of financial and material resources. You got things like coordination, time management, technology use, etc. Those are all going away, according to really, really smart people. What's on the up? We've got things like analytical thinking, creativity, complex problem solving, ideation. Creativity is literally the future not only of work, as we heard earlier today, but it's actually good for you personally as you try to sort of create new realities for your family and yourself. And frankly, it's the last skill to be automated. I run an advertising agency. I automate absolutely everything I can. I automate all sorts of stuff through machine learning, artificial intelligence, programmatic advertising buying, all that sort of stuff. But I can't automate my creatives. I can't automate my strategists. So it's an investment in the future. Creativity is good for what's next. So to geek out on the brain piece for a second, how does creativity actually happen? Well, the first thing that happens is you release dopamine in your brain. And you need both of these things, by the way, for this to work. Dopamine first, which is sort of in your brain what you would think of as a rewards drug. It's sort of what feels like I've done something good. Also, you need serotonin, which is sort of the happy chemical. And only when those two things happen can you get a beautiful picture like that, seemingly with either bees or butterflies flying around it. But that's how creativity happens. You need both of those things to work. And so actually, literally your brain looks different and is working differently depending on what mode you're in. If you're on the low creative network side, you're probably like most of us most days where you're getting through your to-do list, right? You're just getting through your day. You're looking at your calendar. Where do I have to go next? I got to go shopping. I got to go pick up the kids from school. That's a very sort of task-oriented brain function. To get to the high creative network on the other side, that's a very, very different way for your brain to work, where you release yourself of all those pressures and you are working on what's next and inventing and thinking about new things and complex problem solving, as I said. And so if you're like me, that's probably why you have some of your most brilliant ideas while you're taking a shower. Because you've released yourself of your to-do list. That's the moment where you can say absolutely nothing to yourself, stand there and let creativity happen. So what's really cool is that creativity ultimately looks at impossible and says, bullshit. I can get through this. And what's really, really cool is we've got a very interesting local example of that. So first of all, Side Launch, delicious beer. I'm sure almost everybody knows about it. I love it. Drink it all the time. Maybe Creemore Springs a little bit more. We can talk about that later after the after party. But still a good beer. What's almost cooler than the beer itself is actually the origin story, which is this. Which is as a part of the Second World War, we were in Collingwood asked to build 32 ships. And even though we've got this gigantic southern Georgian bay, actually where the shipbuilding operation was close to a very narrow harbor. And the belief was that we actually couldn't launch the ships in first, or rather from the front, or rather from the back. You had to do it sideways. And so we were one of the only harbors in North America that made that impossible possible, and hence side launch beer, which is very cool. So good for all of our predecessors. So here's the theme. What's up? Give me a sense today for why are we excited? What's possible in the future? We're not talking about what's down, we're talking about what's coming. And what I like about creativity as an answer to that is that it's not just an answer to a problem. Creativity can also be a sense of hope. It can be a sense of connection. It can bring us together. It can give us a sense of why we could cope with what the reality of is today and move forward. It can certainly provoke, and we're going to show you an example or two of that. And perhaps most importantly, creativity is contagious. So if you've got one moment of creativity happening, you can see others and inspire others, and maybe those 2 people can inspire 5 people, and maybe those 5 people can inspire 10 people, and then 100 people. So creativity really matters, and it's really, really contagious if we get it right. So a couple of pieces from around the world that really inspire me, and hopefully you as well. This is an artist group in the South Sudan called Anataban, and quite literally that translates to I am tired. And so this is just an amazing artist group that said, we're going to use art to say no more. No more to the violence where we live. No more to letting this go on any longer. And it's a simple and defiant and beautiful act to do that. Beautiful act of creativity. I'm sure many of us have seen this. This is on the border of the southern United States. This is a super cool collection of a very cool architectural firm in Mexico, and a professor from UC Berkeley. And what they decided to come together and say is, well, listen, there's a gigantic steel wall there, and it's creating a real sense of otherness. What would we do to ask a different question and present the people on both sides of the border in a very different light and reframe the discussion in a really important way? It's amazing what just a couple of pink teeter-totters can do. Super, super cool. This is an amazing piece, back to sort of the climate and environmental piece. So obviously with Al Gore involved, it's a super big deal, but they had to design to get him into it. So what this is a bunch of artists said, listen, there's multiple islands of plastic in the middle of the ocean, and nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit because it's actually not one country's problem. So they said, well, let's go pore over the rules of the UN and figure out what it means to be a country. And they said, oh, wait. We can actually pledge the UN and say we are a country, we are called the Trash Isles, and we need everybody on board to recognize us as a country so that somebody finally, one country, many countries, will come together to do something about it. And they didn't just do a press release, which is what so often happens with these sort of PR stunts. They went all the way. They did an official passport. They did a flag. They made their own currency for the Trash Isles. Incredible. You can literally have Trash Isles money. And what's so cool about that is then they actually got the attention that they deserved on the floor of the UN, and things are finally starting to slowly happen here. But you can see how creativity absolutely changed the conversation here.
Exit Deutschland is the end.
I don't want to show you that. I want to tell you about it. So what this is Exit Deutschland is a group of people that have come together to say, how do we de-radicalize that really worrying movement that's happening in Europe, where so many people are being radicalized and becoming essentially Nazis. And so you'll see in a couple of slides that I work a lot in my current role in the fundraising space at times. And to me, this is probably one of the most inventive fundraising ideas ever, because it's fundraising that works against the cause of the people that are doing the march. You'll see what I mean.
Exit Deutschland is the NGO that provides support for individuals seeking to leave the Nazi scene. Yes, believe it or not, brainless neo-Nazis are still a growing movement in Germany. Year after year, they overrun and bother several villages, like Wunsiedel, to demonstrate. We present the first involuntary charity walk, Nazis Against Nazis. For every metre the neo-Nazis marched, €10 were donated by citizens and small businesses to exit Deutschland. So, for the neo-Nazis, it was a lose-lose situation. This revolutionary way of fundraising was successfully replicated by other cities, raising a record amount in donations to exit Deutschland, which means that, as ironic as it sounds, thanks to neo-Nazis, every year there will be less and less Nazis in the world.
Killer. Killer. I wish I'd done it. Damn it. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I love with the Nazis walking by on the side and they can see the signs and they're like, shit, I shouldn't be walking still. Okay, so that's one.
The idea of going to Mexico.
That I also didn't want to play right away is this. It's called DNA discount. So if you think like I do that the biggest existential threat in the entire universe is climate change, and the reason that I think that is because nothing else matters if we don't have a planet to live on. Number two to me is a sort of more macro theme, which is that there's this sense of otherness that's happening in the world, and it's showing up in lots of different ways. But this idea of me versus you, of us versus them. And what I love about this piece, this is an actual brand, Aeromexico, sort of Air Canada of Mexico. They've taken on this sense of otherness and figured out a really cheeky and playful way to sort of cut the legs out from under this racism that can exist in the world. And they've done it in a really interesting way that also allows you to book a flight. Let's have a look.
The idea of going to Mexico is not something that I would foresee.
Let me stay here in peace and let those folks stay on their side of the border.
How do we increase USA flights to Mexico if a big part of Americans just don't like Mexico? Mexican immigration goes as far as the 1800s settling in on the South, meaning that a big percentage of Mexican ascendants in the USA doesn't even know it yet. So we did a DNA test to prove it and turn those results into discounts.
Joshua, you are 18% Mexican.
Oh, wow.
So you get 18% off to fly to Mexico. 14.4% Mexican. You're 22% Mexican.
That's bullshit. That is bullshit.
You are 18% Mexican.
Well, that's better than you.
So you get 22% off to fly to Mexico.
Oh, come on now. Seriously? Okay. That's for real. So what if I want to take my wife?
DNA discounts. There are no borders within us.
So it makes for a great video, but you can see the importance of the message under that, which is these people feel so separated from those just, I was going to say kilometers, but miles south of us, of them rather. And this is a really interesting way to get at the humanity of we are all one. Super, super cool. So up next, I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to not let it play. My agency has the privilege of working with the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, Sick Kids, as many would know it, on a really ambitious goal of the next, now, year and a half, but was once 5 years, which is we need to raise $1.3 billion to get a new hospital built. And so we needed to do all sorts of things in a brand new way to attract all sorts of new donors and show up as a brand in an entirely new way. Why I make the case for creativity with this particular piece, which is the launch film from year one, is that we needed to make a big strategic shift, which is the category forever, and frankly, charities for almost all of time, have thought about sick children as weak. And this idea that just lob $20 over and hopefully little Timmy will live another day. And we said, no, that's not true. They're little warriors. And how do we honor that? And how do we bring that spirit to the Sick Kids Foundation? So this is our year one launch anthem.
Last time I freaked out and ain't been high since. I'm on the fence, shorty trying to send her rinse, but how I'm gonna get top when I don't even got brakes? You don't gotta lose a top, you don't even got hits. So I'm praying that this creepy bus driver don't glimpse I'm rolling. You would think my whip was stolen. In my past life I hit up all that in your pills and I'm swollen like I hit a beat high with a Boeing 737 with my arms to the heavens like drop zone till the block's gone. Can't you tell we ran up out of options? This ain't a choir group, tell the entire truth. And let it set you free, we undeniable. We undeniable. We undeniable. We undeniable. This ain't a choir group, tell the entire truth. And let it set you free, we undeniable. We undeniable. Tell the entire truth and let it set you free. We undeniable. We undeniable.
And for those keeping up with the fight, we're 75% on the way to $1.3 billion. We're going to get the House bill done. So simply put, guys, we need more creativity in the world. And there's something about this quote that I love so much. Albert's got it right, which is that it's actually in all of us, as long as you've got some intelligence, which hopefully I can presume everybody here does. I think we're good there, right? It's just letting that loose and having a bit of fun with it. And, you know, there's this sort of outdated conception of, like, what is a creative? And you so often think about, like, some moody, cool scene with somebody in a dark room on a leather couch, probably with, like, a black turtleneck, and they're smoking a cigarette. And I say bullshit. I actually think that there's creativity in all of us. So actually, I want to do, if I could get the tech group's help here, any light that's possible in the room, I'd like to flood the theater as much as possible. And I would quite literally like you to stand up if, so I'm not kidding here, if you have ever made a handmade birthday card, stand up. Guys, we're supposed to make it take longer. Shit. All right. If you've ever had solved a problem at work, stand up for the 3 people who haven't. If you've ever planted a garden, put your hand in the air. If you've ever gone off recipe when cooking, even if it didn't work out. If you've ever bent logic to get your kid to do something, which I did yesterday morning. I feel like a preacher, this is getting a bit weird. And finally, if there's like one weird person in the back that's never done any of this, if you've ever been a kid, make sure you please stand up. And obviously what we see is creativity is in everybody. And given the theme of what's next, what's our causes for optimism, I would just ask all of you to leave this theater today and be creative. Thank you very much.
Everybody can take a seat for a quick moment.
Thank you, Daniel. Well, it's a great way to close this out. We've been inspired by poets, by songsters, by CEOs, by rocket scientists, by rock stars. What a great day.
What a great day indeed. We'd like to thank everybody who participated in today. So we have some volunteers, we have sponsors, we have organizers. We'd like to start by bringing out Chris Kelleher, who is the spearhead gentleman of this organization.
Thank you for the applause, everyone. We really owe it to the speakers, to the volunteers, to the sponsors, to everyone that made this happen, our great hosts. I want to make a special thank you to Bryce and Emily, who were seamless on the tech again for 3 straight years to make this happen. To Win Thinking, who generously offered their services today to live stream this all day today, as well as live edit, which was incredible. So big round of applause for them. And some 4 special people that really helped us all come together. First and foremost is Tara Janak, who sat with me for endless hours with these speakers to refine their talks and get them to the place they are. So thank you very much, Tara, for everything you do to help with this. And Jody from my team, who is endlessly all year long posting and emailing and making sure everything happens here and organizing things, a skill that I don't have, which is organization. And I had my sister joined the team who also has organizational skills and event skills, and she came in midway and helped, so thank you very much to my sister as well. And then Kayla Sai is also from my team, who handled everything, digital and technical, in terms of ticketing and websites and design to the books and the lanyards, everything you have. So thank you to all the people that were involved, all the volunteers in the back. Thank you all attendees for coming here, and I'm going to turn it over to our host to end the show.
Okay, thanks, Chris, and thanks again to our amazing sponsors. My goodness, what a lot of work went into this. We look forward to seeing everybody at the after parties. There's one at the Crowbar and Variety and one at Gibson and Company. You have tickets for one or the other, and we're supposed to obey that. And now,
I'll close us all.
Dr. Joseph.
All right. Last and certainly not least, you came here to be educated, and hopefully you came here to be inspired. Take the piece that you took, right? Whichever that little nugget was. One of my mantras I really live by is, how do we leave this place better than we found it? Everybody gave you something. What piece will you hang on to? TED is about ideas worth spreading. Don't be passive, be active. Change the world, ladies and gentlemen. Take care, and I love Collingwood. Thank you.